Thank you, Mr. Kucherov. And on behalf of Ms. Latham. Anybody here on behalf of Ms. Latham? All right, I know before we'd had Mr. Cromwell, and I had not heard anything from him. I don't know if any other parties have as well, but
Your Honor, I believe Mr. Cromwell is in a deposition in South Georgia. That's all I know.
all right.
There's a Zoom participant.
All right,
Mr.
all right,
Cromwell.
all
Looks like
right.
he
We
joined.
back.
Okay, that's helpful to know. Mr. Cromwell, can you hear us?
Yeah, we back. They just essentially bring talking about making sure everybody's here, making sure all the lawyers are here. But this is day 3, the Fani Willis disqualification hearing. Today we will be hearing from Terrence Bradley. Terrence Bradley, the ex-business partner of Nathan Wade and his divorce attorney. The judge felt that some of his testimony that he said was privileged was not. So we're going to hear things that he had said was privileged, that the judge said it's not, and or it could be nothing, but we about to find out.
I've now been able to do that, and I also allowed Mr. Wade the opportunity to weigh in and respond as well. And after considering the testimony, not only in camera, but also of what came out at the hearing, I found that neither Mr. Wade nor Mr. Bradley had met their burden of establishing that the attorney-client privilege applied, specifically as it relates to Mr. Bradley's knowledge of any relationship that existed between Ms. Willis and Mr. Wade, and particularly that it wasn't established that his specific knowledge came about in furtherance of legal advice. So having made that determination, I didn't see any other choice but to allow the parties to have an opportunity to explore that topic with him. There's really, in my mind, it's that topic only. I think that if there's anything else we've already covered, I'm not here to do it again. So with that, is there anything else we need to cover before kicking that off?
Just Mr. Wade, he's still a potential witness, I would assume. And so he needs to still be excused. We can go through continuing.
Mr. Avati?
I believe Mr. Wade was released from his subpoena when we concluded his testimony at the last hearing. So unless he's been re-subpoenaed, and I have no knowledge of that, he has every right to be present.
Sure. I think procedurally that would be accurate. And so I at this point, I don't see a means where he would need to be recalled. And but if it is, then that is something you can take up. All right. Mr. Bradley, through his attorney, had informed me that he would be here today in person. I don't see him in the gallery. Do we know if he's out in the hallway? Okay. All right. If we could call for Mr. Bradley.
He ain't even there. He ain't even there. He done pulled up. Everybody done pulled up waiting on him. He ain't even there.
Judge, would it be permissible to sit in the jury box?
That's fine. All right, Mr. Bradley, Deputy Scott will swear you in again.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. All right, if we could call for Mr. Bradley.
He ain't even there.
Terrence Bradley, Terrence Bradley, Bradley.
Ms. Merchant.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Mr. Bradley.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you. Sorry, under these circumstances. I'm going to just go straight to where we left off before. Fani Willis and Nathan Wade were in a romantic relationship, correct?
Correct.
And it began at the time that they were both municipal court judges, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, based on privilege. That would be covered in the attorney-client privilege.
Okay, overruled.
I do not have knowledge of it starting or when it started.
Okay, no knowledge of when it started.
Terrence, you told me that it started when they were both municipal court judges, though, correct?
That is incorrect.
Ooh, she's trying to hit him with the personal knowledge.
You never confirmed in writing that it was, instead of magistrate court, it was in municipal court when they started dating?
If you're speaking of the text message, you can go to that text message and you can read that text message, and I will explain the text message to you. But you and I did not have a conversation about when it started. You asked a compound question of magistrate court versus I mean, you said it was magistrate court, municipal I mean, you said magistrate court conference. I'm sorry. And then you asked another question. I said no, municipal court, nothing else.
I'm referring to a different conversation. I asked you, do you think it
Personal
started before she
conversation.
hired
She
him?
a snake.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. This was covered in the previous hearing where Mr. Bradley said he had no personal knowledge of the exact text that Ms. Merchant is speaking of and actually used in an attempt to refresh his recollection. And he explained exactly what he's explaining here before the court. So this is repetitive and unnecessary. And so I would object to asked and answered and relevance at this point.
All right, perhaps we'll get there, but I think first, Ms. Merchant has the right to draw his attention to the exact, potentially inconsistent statement.
Thank you, Judge. May I approach him?
It's overruled. You may.
Oh, you can see it.
Yo, she a snake for real. Like you remember when we talked about? I know you remember what we talked about, but nigga, you shouldn't be.
For purposes of the
gossiping with
record, I
this
believe
bunny,
Ms.
no
Merchant, you
way.
tendered, was it the entire text chain as an exhibit?
I only tendered a few of the texts, but I did give the state their courtesy copies last time of the exhibits.
Was this one tendered?
This one was not tendered.
These is
Alright.
personal
happy to tender
text
it.
messages.
Well,
Oh,
just-
boy.
Take it as it comes, whatever you.
We're at,
Listen,
think-
y'all gotta
think we're
watch
at
these
39.
bunnies.
I will wait to mark it, but I think we're at 39. May I approach, Judge?
You may.
Wow. Remember when you told me in court? That's only some Trump team shit. I only see that happening like that. I may be wrong, but it's like no, it's no shock that somehow they found a group of people that used to be friends and they got a Trump. One of them is
All right,
representing a Trump attorney.
So Terrence, do you
That's
remember
crazy.
telling me that it started when she left the DA's office and was a judge in South Fulton?
I see the message there, but I don't recall. I do see that message, but I do not recall.
You don't recall texting this?
I look back at my text messages through that we've had. I see that message, but I do not recall that. No, ma'am.
And when I asked you if you,
Nigga, 'cause you was
if you thought it
gossiping.
started before she hired him, and you responded absolutely.
Your Honor, I'm going to object as to the source of the information that Mr. Bradley allegedly gathered this from. There's been absolutely no foundation, and based on the arguments at the last hearing, that a lot of this is based on gossip, innuendo, assumptions,
Yes.
and privileged information. And at this point, Ms. Merchant has not provided a foundation as to how Mr. Bradley would have any information that she keeps referring to.
All right, I think
Judge,
that's, go ahead, Ms. Merchant.
I didn't ask him about the source of the information. And under Rule 621,
But
I can
shouldn't that
impeach
matter?
him with any inconsistent facts. This is an inconsistent fact. I can impeach him with any contrary facts.
Sure.
This is a
Why would it
contrary
be
fact.
a relevant impeachment if he actually has no personal knowledge of this?
If he doesn't.
Sure.
have
So I
personal
think you have to lay that foundation then, so that'll be sustained.
Still hitting it with the objections.
Do you remember telling me that it began?
Well, that doesn't address the issue.
No, I'm not. I was just asking if you remember telling me as opposed to the
Okay,
text.
sure.
Do you remember telling me that it began?
Well, no, and then you're going into the substance of it, which we haven't determined whether he actually knows or how he knows.
Look, that's what I'm saying.
You
That's what
told
happened
me.
when you're trying to be a snake.
In fact, you corrected me when I said magistrate court. You corrected me and said it was sorry.
You're trying to be on
how
some
he knows
snake
it?
shit.
I'm just asking if he told me that.
Right.
So I wasn't asking how he knew that. I wasn't asking the source of that knowledge. I was asking if he told me that.
Sure.
That was it.
Look, they trying to help
The
her.
point, it's how he knows it.
Right.
The source of his knowledge, the state would contend is hearsay because it's gossip and innuendo, which is what was indicated the last hearing.
Well, it may not be hearsay. It may not be gossip. We haven't really gotten there yet. We don't know how he knows what apparently he's telling her. And I think we need to figure that out before we can go any further.
Yes. And if the source of the information is a witness who've testified, then it's not hearsay. So when did the relationship start?
I cannot answer that.
When was your first knowledge of the relationship?
Objection, Your Honor. He's already answered that question multiple times today. He said he has no idea the timeline or when it occurred. That was one of the first questions that Ms. Merchant asked.
I didn't ask when. I asked his first knowledge. He testified he has knowledge that they had a relationship. I asked him when he first got knowledge of that.
Okay. So if the question is, when did you first get knowledge? I think we can start there.
That was the question. Yes.
All right.
Thank you. When did you first get knowledge of their relationship?
I've said over again that I was not I didn't have any personal information where I could personally say when it started. I've said that time and time again. So I don't know when the relationship started.
And that wasn't my question. So my question is, when did you first gain knowledge? I didn't ask the source of the knowledge, didn't ask you to comment on the validity of the knowledge. I asked when you first had knowledge.
We'll get to the how, Mr. Abadi. So I'll note the objection, overrule it. You can answer that.
And just for the record, and I appreciate your honor, but he said he had no personal knowledge, so he had to gain the knowledge not from hearsay.
He could have gained it from
Sure.
Mr. Wade.
Well, I mean, most of us learn things from hearsay. The question of whether it's admissible, right? And that's what we got to get to. So
Yeah, I don't know. This may be a dud today.
I apologize.
Because the whole conversation is about
When did you first get
when relationships
knowledge?
started. If
I'm
you don't
not
have
qualifying
no
what type of knowledge. I'm just
original
asking
knowledge
you
of
about
how
the
it went down, he can't impeach that. He can't ruin that.
I don't know how to answer that. I mean, so I can't give you a date if you're asking for a date. If you're asking me, how did I get the knowledge? It would have come directly from my client.
Right.
So help me understand.
I think you say you can't answer that question. You don't know the date. So that's the answer to the question.
But I said that 5 minutes ago.
We have to make it clear.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Next question, Ms. Merchant.
So you don't know the specific date.
No.
Do you know if can we narrow down the timeline? Did you gain knowledge in 2019 of this relationship beginning?
I'm going to object to this line of questioning as he said he does not know
Sure.
when he gained
All right.
knowledge.
He doesn't know the
Overrule-
specific
That's
date.
fine, Ms. Merchant. I think I'm overruling that. I think we can try to see if he can narrow it down based on goalposts.
Okay, okay. He may say something wrong though.
19, I would probably say no. I mean, I don't have anything that there wasn't
Okay.
a specific date. There wasn't a football game. There wasn't something that I can attribute to him telling me whatever. And so you're asking
he
for
being
a
slick,
date,
though.
you're
He
asking
being
for a
slick, though.
year, it's still a date. And at this time, I am telling you that I do not have the date.
Let's try this then. So you received a contract from Ms. Willis, January 2021, correct?
Can I see the?
Uh,
Yes,
I
yes,
don't
I think
know
so.
what the Exhibits are, I think, okay.
I think if it was from the exhibits, I think it was 21. Yes.
And I don't want to belabor the point, because you did those
Yes.
when you were here before.
Yes.
If those documents that you looked at last time
Yes.
said January 2022, that's, okay.
21. I
I'm
didn't.
sorry, 21, you're right, thank
And it
you.
was, I think, renewed in 22.
It was, yes. So the contract date was, that we have in the record is January 25th, 2022. So using that date, at that point, had they begun their romantic relationship?
Of 2022.
January 25th, 2022, 2021, I'm sorry. When you
Oh.
got your first contract?
What you about to say?
I-
What you about to say?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I don't recall any specific dates. No, ma'am.
Oh boy.
Remember when you got that contract, though, correct?
I remember I had the contract. Yes.
Okay. And you told us last week, or I guess it was the week before now, you told us that Mr. Wade brought you that contract, essentially told you about that contract.
That is correct.
So Ms. Willis is not the one that brought that contract to you directly. It was Mr. Wade.
That is correct.
At that point in time, they were already engaged in a relationship, though,
I'm going to
correct?
object, Your
I
Honor.
can't say that.
Characterization of what Mr. Bradley just said. He just said he does not remember. There's nothing specific.
He doesn't remember the exact date. And I think the question now is to reference it or tie it to maybe some other event that he might remember.
I agree with Your Honor. She asked that specific question. He said he does not remember any specific dates after signing the contract. That's exactly
Sure.
what he just said. This is
All
asked
right.
and answered.
I know, and we're getting to the end of it. So, Ms. Merchant, you don't have much more to pull on here, but he answered that last question. So what's your next one?
And Judge, I didn't hear the answer if they were in a relationship January 25th,
Mr.
2021.
Bradley, do you recall the question?
I recall the question, and I can't tell you accurately whether or not they were in a relationship at the time. You asked me about him bringing me a contract. I said he did bring me a contract, and that is accurate.
Do you remember knowing Ms. Willis prior to her taking office as the DA?
I had very little contact with Miss Willis. I knew her through my business of coming down to Fulton, if that's what you're asking. Yes.
You knew her through the business. So you had met her prior to your contract.
I'm going to object to relevance at this point as to why we're here today.
Sure.
Judge, he doesn't remember much of anything right now. And so I'm trying to create a timeline to hopefully piece this together.
All right. Well,
You trying to
I'm not
create
seeing
a
really
timeline?
the likelihood that that's going to have any success. I'll let you ask a few more questions, but if he doesn't have a date, then I don't know that you're going to be able to create one today.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank
this
you.
is crazy. She sucks. Ashley Merchant is terrible. She ain't been able to get no lead. She ain't been able to. She has not been able to get around the. I don't recall.
So the
I don't
time
know.
that you had
I ain't
this
got no personal
contract from
information on
January
that.
2021 until
And
January
that's what happened when you bring
2022, did you
gossip.
come in and out of the DA's office?
Yes.
Okay. And so were you able to witness Mr. Wade and Ms. Willis interact during that time?
I'm going to object. This has been asked and answered. It was addressed at the last hearing about Mr. Bradley's access to and from a specific room to pick up files.
Yeah, he already
Mr.
answered
Bradley
this.
said that
Sure.
he rarely saw them together, but this was
Yeah,
answered.
I think the only avenue that was closed at the last hearing was his personal knowledge, potentially through, well, actually, no, if he testified, it was that he had no personal knowledge. It's knowledge that conveyed to him that was cut off at the last hearing. That's really the only thing we hadn't been able to explore, unless you correct me if I'm wrong,
Knowledge that was conveyed to him by,
by somebody else. That's that he claimed at the time was privilege. I found that it's not. That's what we're here to explore.
okay.
Yeah, I don't. So they pulled the phone calls. I don't know if the judge has allowed the
Do you
phone
remember
calls
telling me
into
that
evidence,
not
though.
many people knew where
I
they
think
went?
he's gonna decide on that.
I'm going to object as to
On
relevance
March
as to
1st.
his personal knowledge,
Yeah.
which is what 602 requires.
Yeah, I mean, we're back to the same point, Ms. Murphy.
Now, the reason why it's considered gossip is because,
But he hasn't yet.
like, literally the basis of Miss Merchant's, Ashley Merchant's conversation and Terrence Bradley conversation was like they used to be friends, and they were talking. They were talking back and forth about Nathan Wade.
No, you don't.
They was talking back and forth about Nathan Wade. So it's like, that's why I'm saying, that's why they saying it's gossip, because it was just him and her talking as like colleagues about him and a potential relationship.
Where did you gain that knowledge from?
Well, I'm going to object because his testimony a few minutes ago is that he did not recall making that statement.
All right, I'll overrule that. Mr. Bradley, answer the question if you can.
They trying with
Repeat
these
the question.
objections.
When you told me that their relationship started when she left the DA's office and was a judge in South Fulton, where did you obtain that knowledge from?
I was speculating. I didn't have a.
Yeah, lying. You was lying. You was gossiping with this bunny. You was lying. You was just saying some shit for conversation. And look where it,
No one told me I was speculating.
and look where it
No
got
one
you.
told you that?
No one told me that.
You were
You
speculating based on things that had been told to you or things
Gossiping.
you had observed?
So I'm going to object as to the nature of this line of questioning because the witness has made it clear he was speculating as to how or what he knew. And if it's speculation, it's inadmissible before this court.
All right, but the motivations for his reason for speculating would be admissible, so I'll overrule that.
Thank you, Judge. Was this speculation when you told me that? Was that based on things that had been told to you and things that you had witnessed?
I never witnessed anything. So, it was speculation. I can't tell you
I was just running my
anything
mouth. Just
specific.
say it.
if
I was
that's
just
what
running my
you're-
mouth.
You're asking.
Tell me anything specific as to why you speculated about that?
No, this was years ago. I mean, I don't recall, but no, I don't.
Did you have any reason why?
I don't know if speculation is lying, but
Well, let me just show me where in this text it says you're speculating. Or
you didn't ask me if I was speculating or guessing.
I didn't ask you, but tell me if it says anywhere here that
No,
this is
it-
speculation.
If this is the same one that you just showed me, it does not.
Okay,
You're
she
welcome
getting
if you need to
frustrated.
Look at your text. Is there anywhere in here that indicates that you didn't have knowledge of the
No.
relationship?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. The line of questioning Your Honor directed counsel to explore is where he got the knowledge. She's explored that. He said it's speculation, and he didn't get it from any source other than his own speculation.
Sure.
So
I think we're fleshing that out, and I think it's her right to have a little leeway on this if he's an adverse witness.
Thank you, Judge. And Judge, these speaking objections are clearly coaching the witness because he's regurgitating.
Your Honor, I
What-
object and take offense to that comment. I'm objecting based on the law, and I'm making a record for the court.
All right.
So I take offense to that comment. It's
So then
not
she
the
just had to
case.
accuse him
All right,
of
well,
leading
Uh,
the witness.
I think we can start with objection, the grounds, and the rule number, and then if I need more, I'll ask.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. What did Nathan tell you about the relationship?
Objection, hearsay.
Nathan has testified. It's
Yeah.
not hearsay.
It's still hearsay. It's an out-of-court statement being brought in for the truth of the matter asserted. So hearsay.
Judge,
All right. Yeah, this would be for impeachment by contradiction, which would
Thank
be an
you.
exception to the hearsay rule, and admissible as substantive evidence, and the privilege issues are overruled.
thank you, Judge.
Well, I think you just overruled the privilege objection, but we don't know when he's talking about. So we've already established the December
Right.
2018 date of privilege.
Sure. And that's something I covered in the in-camera hearing, and based on what he told me in that in-camera hearing, I don't believe any statements to this effect were covered by privilege.
And Judge, I just want for the record, because sometimes the record doesn't reflect where people are looking, and that when I ask a question, Mr. Bradley is looking at Mr. Wade and his lawyer to wait for them to object, and they're clearly interacting somehow in the court. So I just want the record
See,
to
that's what
reflect
I'm
that
saying.
because
They
it wouldn't
have to be
otherwise.
dramatic
There now.
and
A
accuse.
question was put to you, Mr. Bradley.
Like,
Judge,
accuse
one of my
it gotta be
lawyers
at a
is
foolishness.
is sitting right in the back,
We
that's
don't have to go
behind.
down that rabbit hole. You can look wherever you want.
Yeah, and I'd never looked at Mr. Wade or his attorneys. That sounds God's truth.
All right. Mr. Bradley, question was put to you.
Repeat the question, please.
Yes.
This is,
So
wait,
I
I'm
showed
telling
you.
you, this is
Or
comedy.
I asked you, I'm sorry, the last question I asked you was, what did Nathan Wade tell you about the relationship?
Same objection, Your Honor.
And that's already been ruled upon.
I recall him stating that at some point they were dating. I can't tell you what date that was. It was made in confidence. We were in the back of our office. Our offices were the only two in the back. There was no one else present. That is all I can tell you at this time.
Okay, that was okay. Played a nice
One time?
little.
One time.
You only had a conversation with him one time about the relationship?
Objection, asked and answered.
No, I think that's a clarify for a thorough and sifting cross. Ms. Merchant.
I do not recall any other time that he mentioned that they were in a relationship. No.
What you gonna do with that, Miss Merchant?
He ruled that he was.
Okay.
What you gonna do now, Miss
So
Merchant?
other than, so you talked about this one time, and you said you don't know when it was though, correct?
That is correct.
Was it before Mr. Wade, before you got the contract in Fulton County? Let's start with that.
I do not recall.
Okay. And how did it come up?
Say again.
How did it come up?
I do not recall how it came up. It was in the back. I know where it occurred. In our offices in the back. I can't tell you what we were discussing prior to that.
It's like pulling teeth with this nigga.
Did you receive an email from me on January 6th with a motion attached?
It's crazy because like as much as
I
I'm
think I
like
did. Yes.
pro
Yes.
Fani,
I
I'm
know.
definitely on
I
Fani
received.
Willis' side.
I don't know if the date is January 6th, but yes, I received that. Yes.
As much as I'm pro
remember
Fani,
receiving that.
this
Yes.
nigga make you think like I don't know when that motherfucker
And you reviewed
started.
it, and then you and I spoke about it. Do you recall that?
Did we speak over the phone, or are you saying through a text?
That's what I'm asking you. If you
I
recall
can't
speaking-
remember whether it was text or phone or
But you recall us speaking, one way or another.
one way or another, yes.
And where I was trying to confirm the facts in that filing.
I think I remember there was a line of about the accuracy of how much money that my office, the law office of Terrence A. Bradley, have received.
Yeah, make sure y'all hit that like button when
And
y'all come
whether or
on
not
in.
that was going to be in the motion or not.
There wasn't a discrepancy. I had kept that out. You asked me to step back in, correct?
I recall you that may be accurate, yes.
And you thought, because you thought it might be suspicious if you were left out of the motion.
No, I think
Don't be gossiping with bunnies.
we discussed that it should reflect the accuracy because the accuracy was that I received, I had a contract and received 74,000. And I think you had put in there that Mr. Campbell had received a certain amount, and then you also had put in there that Mr. Wade had received a certain amount. But there was not anything in there originally, and I said that it needed to be accurate. I needed to be accurate as far as that I had received 74,000. That's
Right.
correct.
Because you did not want anyone knowing that you had talked to me.
I'm gonna object this to relevant.
Woo!
Bias.
See?
Overruled.
Backstabbing.
I wanted you to be accurate as far as the accuracy
Backstabbers.
of our message or your filing.
She said, because you
Okay,
didn't want
so that was
people to
your-
know
so your
you was
interest
talking to
wasn't
me.
in accuracy of the
Ooh. Boy.
I didn't reach out to you and say, send
Lesson
me
learned.
a copy of your motion.
Right.
I didn't reach out to you to say that that I'm going to be in your motion
Right. I asked you to review it for accuracy.
for accuracy. And I just stated that it was inaccurate.
And the inaccuracy that you pointed out was the thing about or how much you had made.
That was the inaccuracy that I saw that jumped out was the fact that I saw that I was left out when you had put
Okay.
the firm, the money wise. I did not, when I responded to that, it was for that specific reason.
Okay. And I agreed I would put that back in, that section back in, and I
Correct.
I did put it back in and I sent it to you again.
I don't recall getting a second email from you now.
But you were happy that I put it back in, or that I agreed to put it back in.
I'm gonna object this to relevance.
Yeah, we need to get to more material aspects.
Yes, Judge, I'm moving along, I promise.
See, and it's shit like that.
So you asked me, you did ask me
All
to put
this
that back
time has been immaterial. She has
Well,
made
answered
no,
Well, he didn't answer that
Ground.
last question, so overruled.
ain't made no ground. Let's see.
in. You did, can you confirm you did ask me to put that back in for it to be accurate?
Yes, that's correct. I said that, yes.
Okay. And then I asked you if everything was accurate and you said, looks good. Correct?
I recall you asking that, but the looks good was applying to the accuracy of the 74,000. That's it.
So when you reviewed the motion and you specifically pointed out that one thing that you found inaccurate, you didn't point anything else out that you found inaccurate in that motion though, correct?
No, I did not.
And that motion alleged that their relationship began when Miss Willis was in municipal court.
If I can reread the motion, but I don't recall, but if that's what it says. But I did my saying that it looks good was when you put back in the 74,000 into your motion.
Okay, and that's,
Yeah,
that
I mean,
wasn't
yeah,
what
just
I
say
was
I ain't
asking.
read-
What
I
I
ain't
was
read the rest
asking
of the
is,
motion.
you didn't tell me that there was anything else inaccurate in the motion though, right?
So the question is, did you read
But
the
I
rest
didn't
of the
state
motion?
that anything was accurate other than the 74,000.
Now, when I told you that I had this motion that I was preparing, you asked me to send a rough draft.
No, that's incorrect.
May I approach, Judge?
You may.
Which page are you showing?
They're not page numbered. It's January 6th.
I just see it.
Yeah, of course. I can show you if you saw the text.
I don't know.
Look and see if Mr. Rush is remembering.
Man, listen. Man, listen. All of this is based on the fact that this man was gossiping with this bunny.
So,
It's the only reason we
we've
going
been
through
talking
this.
and you
I'm
asked me to
telling
send
you.
you a rough draft, and I told you, okay, but I didn't want it to be leaked before I filed it. Right?
That is correct. That is correct.
So you're the one that asked me to send a rough draft.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that's correct.
That was at 10:08 on Saturday, January 6th.
Hood therapy was good with it.
and
Was
then-
good with it.
You got an email from me with that rough draft at 10:25 that same day, correct?
Yes.
If you need to look at it, I can.
If it says 10:25, then I know you sent me an email.
Well, we got more one in the building.
Why
What's
he's looking at
good?
it. I'm gonna object us to ask and answer. We've been through the.
So,
Send him a copy of the motion.
hold on,
whether
right now-
He specifically said rough draft or not, and then asked
he
about the
listening
accuracy. He's
to-
explained his answer, and I've,
right now we listening to
Mr.
Nathan
Rod, we're getting there.
Wade's
Overruled for now.
ex-business partner and divorce attorney.
I responded when we were talking about that footnote that we were just talking about. I said,
So it's been exposed that he's been gossiping with the attorney Ashley Merchant
I
before
answered
this
that,
trial,
yes.
before this case, and she using everything, all the personal conversations that they had, to undermine this nigga, to get him to say, you know, they lying and you lying for him.
I don't know where the exhibits are. They were admitted. That refresh your memory?
It's
It
kind of
says looks
crazy.
good, but
This can't get more soap
I
opera
stated
than
before,
this.
I was responding to you putting me back into the motion for receiving $74,000 in a contract.
This says, you said, yes, add it back, and then I said, anything else, anything that is inaccurate, and you responded, looks good. So you weren't responding to put it back in.
Your Honor, I'm gonna object.
I
This is
know.
not his motion. He wasn't the affiant of the motion or verified. the-
Overruled, Mr. Body.
Talking about the personal knowledge.
I've said
No personal knowledge.
twice,
Overruled, Mr. Body.
I've said twice that the looks accurate was, or I've said more than twice, was for the 74,000.
Do you remember telling me about
Yeah, I see how every statement is. You remember when
Nathan
you
and
told
Bonnie
me?
coming to your
You
office
remember that? I'm telling you,
spending
that's
time
some
together at your
TMZ
office?
shit. That's some Real
No, I
Housewives of
mentioned,
Atlanta shit. You
I
told
do
me.
recall testifying on the 16th that she had come to our office.
And that was before she was elected as district attorney, correct?
I recall that that was when she was district attorney. Because I said that there was a meeting held at my office.
And who was at that meeting?
Now, I can't tell you that. I don't recall.
But you know, Miss Willis was there, Mr. Wade was there.
It was at our office. Actually, Miss Willis was there, and there were other people there. Mr. Wade was not in that meeting. He was in the back. I wasn't even in that meeting.
Why did she hold it at your office then?
I have no idea.
You also remember telling me about them spending time together at her law office before she took her job.
Spending
I
time.
don't recall. Do you? I don't recall. Do you have something to?
Well, what I'm asking is, she's
trying to be
let's back up a
slick.
sec. So
That's what
Ms.
she's trying
Willis
to do.
rented a law office from the Evans firm, or Andrew Evans and another lawyer, I think Stacy Evans. You have knowledge of that, correct?
I'm gonna object to hearsay.
If
Well,
How does he know the information? That would be the correct question.
okay. Ms. Merchant?
I don't really know even how to respond to that. Hearsay, I'm asking if he knew that she rented
Yeah,
offices.
he may have been there. He may
Right.
have, may have seen a business card or something at some point. I think you can answer that.
I've never been to Miss Willis's office when she was in private practice. I've never dealt with where she rented. I didn't even know where her office was. So
Do you remember, though, knowing that she rented an office
yes,
from the Evans?
yes,
You did know
that
Thank
that
you.
is correct. Yes.
Okay. And do you remember telling me that Mr. Wade and Miss Willis would rendezvous at that office?
I'm gonna object.
That's what. Here, this is
Again,
the
hearsay
gossip.
as to
You know,
how
they
he
was
knows
meeting
that
up at her
information.
office.
He said he
and-
has no personal knowledge. And
He did
just-
not say he has no personal knowledge, Judge. He hasn't even answered it.
No, he said in general, he had no personal knowledge. So it's not been established the source of how he would know this because he said he's never been to her office.
All right. Ms. Merchant, if you, I know you're trying to impeach him by a prior inconsistent statement, but unless you can first back up and show why each statement is actually something that he had knowledge of, I don't know if this is going to be.
The only reason
Relevant.
she know
Because
that
I'm
he
not
has
even there yet.
knowledge.
But again, that a speaking objection, and so now I
Bro,
anticipate.
the
what
only
our response
reason
is
she
gonna
know
be
that he has
next.
knowledge
I
is
didn't
because they
ask
was gossiping
anything that was
together.
objectionable,
So
but
she can't
these
bring
objections
anything
are
like any
coaching
substantial.
witness.
It's just
I asked if
remember
he had
you told
knowledge.
me.
That's
You
it.
remember you
I
told me.
didn't ask, did someone say this to you? I didn't ask, what did this person tell you? I asked if you knew.
Well, no, you're asking if you had knowledge, and then you say of something specific. So,
Once I get an answer to that, if he has knowledge, then I will follow up with where that knowledge
What up
came
with it,
from.
All
Blue?
right, let's
What
try
up with
again.
it?
So my question is, do you have knowledge of them meeting at that office?
Objection, foundation.
okay. All right. Overruled.
She's like, all right,
Do you have
nigga, sit
knowledge
down.
of them meeting at that office?
I have no personal knowledge if that's what you're asking.
I didn't ask that yet. I asked if you have any knowledge.
Objection, that would be
Over-
hearsay.
Overruled.
Not if it came from
We
Mr.
don't
Wade,
know where it
Judge.
came from. So he said, how do you know, Mr. Bradley?
How do you know?
Any knowledge that I would have received would have come from my client at the time.
Okay, so you had knowledge of this place that Miss Willis worked. What did you know about them meeting at that office?
Objection, hearsay.
It's not hearsay,
Overruled.
Judge.
How he knows it, and then you ask the next question.
All right. He's already asked the next question.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. How do you have knowledge? What knowledge did, well, you just told us. You told us Mr. Wade told you. So tell us what Mr. Wade told you about Miss Willis and Mr. Wade meeting at the Evans office.
Objection, Your Honor, privilege. This clearly covers the time after December 2018 that would be covered by the privilege.
Yeah. Overruled.
They getting killed in these overrules, though. None of these objections is going through. But what did he tell you about them meetups, man?
You recall the question, Mr. Bradley?
I do not.
All right. If you could re-ask the question, Ms. Merchant.
What did you learn from Mr. Wade? Because we've clarified that's where you learned it from. About Mr. Wade and Miss Willis meeting at the Evans office together.
I've been waiting for
I'll
this nigga to
object
slip
ask and
up for
answer.
the.
He's testified that.
He hasn't answered. We haven't heard an answer.
He testified he had one conversation with Mr. Wade in the back of his law
Judge,
office.
Yeah, and his answer may change. So
Still
overruled.
off as to how to answer the question.
That's
I can't recall what the conversation was. I do recall knowing that he would go down to the office or had been down to the office, but I can't tell you in what capacity or when or any of that. No,
Mr. Wade told you that they had sex at that office, though, correct?
Wow.
I don't recall him stating that. No,
You don't recall?
Wow.
no.
So it's possible he did say that.
It's,
You just don't remember one way or another?
I do not remember him saying that.
wow. That's what I'm saying. This is the
I
gossip.
recall that he had a garage door opener to either
This
a
is the
house or a
gossip.
condo or something like that of Miss Willis's.
I've never seen a garage door opener. I've never been to Miss Willis's house. I've never been to, and I'm trying to explain, I've never been. So no, I do not have any personal knowledge of him having
Wow.
a garage door opener.
Even
sir.
if they did have sex at the office,
Like, as in you saw
you got to establish that
You
it
have
was
any
before
knowledge at all?
2023.
from Mr. Wade or any source that he had a garage door opener to
is
access one
crazy.
of Miss Willis's residence.
And I'll object to any source as to hearsay.
All right, depends on the source. Overruled.
No, I don't have any knowledge.
So when you told me that, did you just make it up?
Yep.
Do you have something that shows that I told you that?
Yes, well,
Well,
we're going to go through all the texts we can, but so was that made up though?
was it made up?
Because I
I don't recall him having,
Mr. Bradley, just a
I'm
second.
going to object under 106 as the rule of completeness. I don't have that text message or any text messages that indicate that, Your Honor.
And I don't have, if it was a text, we had that conversation. I actually think it was when he was on speakerphone and Mr.
She's
Merchant let me know, but I'm
using
not sure,
gossip.
but-
Look, she's talking
I mean,
about.
if I'm
you said-
asked
well, we talked
to
about
qualify
it.
exactly
and
where
she
that's
said-
from, I would
Okay, so rule of completeness would be if you need to introduce other text to show the context. If you're saying you haven't seen a copy yet, then I think Ms. Merchant needs to do that before you can
and I don't
decide your
have-
next step.
And that's what I was asking him. If that was something he just remembers making up. If he doesn't, then
This is
that's
crazy.
fine. But
She referenced text messages and started to go into her packet of papers.
Sure.
That have text.
So you don't have a text message to that.
I would need some time to look through, and I don't remember if I have a text to that or if it was during a conversation.
Then move
It was
on.
one of those.
Then move
Well,
on.
he has now said that he has no knowledge, so on to your next question.
Okay.
Stop
Mr. Wade
gossiping
tell
and
you
do
about
some
the trips that he and
lawyering.
Miss Willis took?
Jesus.
no.
You have any knowledge of the trips that he and Miss Willis took?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
And y'all need another objection.
now.
goddamn. Right.
But you did not before this proceeding?
I did not know until you text that you found that in the deposition of
You
his
told him.
divorce.
You told
I
him.
mean, not deposition, but something from his divorce.
Okay.
I know because you
And
told me. This is
He
crazy. All this
responded,
is a back and forth
doesn't
about
surprise me. They
two
took many
motherfuckers
trips to
gossiping.
Florida, Texas, California. Those are your words though, right?
I'm going to object as to relevance. He said he did not know and he actually learned from Ms. Merchant the information.
He said he learned about certain trips from Miss Merchant.
Okay, you can tie it down, but
Thank you.
we'll
He
see.
had no information about any
Even the
trips that
judge
Ms.
is
Willis
like,
and
we'll
Mr.
see
Wade
where
took.
where you going with this
That he
because you're
learned
not.
it all from Ms. Merchant. That was his testimony.
Sure.
Judge, I'm
Maybe the
allowed.
conclusion we reach. I think she's going to ask more than one question, though. All right, Ms. Merchant.
And if Judge, just so we can be clear, if he said more than one version, that's all relevant. We're allowed to talk about the different versions that he's told.
All right, I've overruled.
Right.
the
Hood therapy said her receipts ain't receipting. Right.
You remember telling me that it didn't surprise
Right.
you that they took the trips that I found in the divorce file because they took many trips to Florida, Texas, California. And then you told me that they took the trip to California when she moved her daughter there because she failed out of FAMU. Do you remember that?
Ooh, she getting real.
I don't recall
spicy.
that, but if I don't recall.
Okay. Judge, may I approach? It's
You may.
in one of the ones I gave you.
Getting spicy. Damn, bringing up. See, that's what I'm saying. Like now they bringing up her daughter failing out of FAMU. We didn't know her daughter didn't. You know what I'm saying? Got kicked out of school, and we ain't need to. But this is what Trump and them do. They rather spill everybody else's personal business than be held accountable.
Let me know if it refreshes your memory.
This is the greatest example of desperation coming from the Trump campaign, and the only reason it's working like this is because it's in Georgia. It's a Republican country.
So when that,
So just first let me know if that refreshes your memory.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So it's true that you told me that they took many trips to Florida, correct?
Per that, yes, but one of the messages is cut off, and you asked about some other trips, and I said, no, I didn't, I think. And that was specific to, at the top of that, it says, no, I didn't.
Yes.
And so
He admitted he didn't know.
that was to the trips that you asked me about. And I think before that, when you mentioned that you found all these trips, I think I said, oh, wow.
You did.
And
You did not know about all the trips that were taken, and you qualified it. You said, no, I didn't. When did it happen? And then the next text, which I can get, or you can look at your phone or whatever refreshes your memory.
Yeah, she ain't
You said it was
doing that.
after you left, after the
Hey,
firm
Donnie
was
C.
sold, correct?
Donnie
Subject
C.
to
I
relevance.
hope he
Overruled.
hit.
It was after the firm, the trips that.
I hope he
you said
hit,
no, you
Donnie.
didn't
What's
know
up,
about.
Miss
You
Ma'am?
told me those were after your firm had dissolved, correct?
I think you mentioned that they were after I left, maybe, or whenever you found them. And I said, no, I didn't know about those trips. So
So you believe I mentioned that it was after you left?
I'm quite sure you have the text message, and I will refresh my memory.
Is it easier for you to refresh your memory with your own phone or with my printouts of screenshots?
Well, you have the printout, so I'll go.
Judge, the reason I'm asking is because I'm getting objections that I've cut things off, and it's just the nature of how you have to print out screenshots. So in order to avoid that, I'm happy for him to refresh his memory with his own phone, if that would be,
Well, I don't know if he's accepting your offer or not, so you're going to
would that be easier for you?
You can just provide the documents.
Okay.
Yeah, all that hostility ain't gonna get it for her because she's doing a lot of talking, but she's not establishing a timeline. So if you're trying to impeach, like, if your whole job is to impeach this nigga as a witness, like, what the fuck did y'all bring him for? I know this nigga ain't the state witness. I know that he not. What's the purpose? If he's literally saying he don't know nothing, what you gonna get from impeaching him? The only thing y'all can get with him is if he has concrete, if he has concrete evidence, if whether or not their relationship started before 2023.
Sorry, Judge, I'm just trying to pull out all of
She
the
ain't
messages
like
that
she
you
hasn't
made.
gotten any
All right.
closer to
Well,
that at all. If
I
anything,
don't really
I'm-
see at,
Hold on,
so-
let me
at
turn this
some
down.
point we're reaching the cumulative point where we don't need to go through an entire 6-month text chain. You're making the point that he'd made some comments to you along the way that led you to believe he had more knowledge than today he's testifying that he had. And so if you've hit the high points of that, then I don't know what else we can cover that actually moves the needle.
Okay, I'll move on to the actual trips then. So you told me that they took many trips to Florida.
Even the judge
That
telling her
was
like
her
you
memory.
not going
that.
nowhere.
Was that based on your knowledge from Mr. Wade?
That would have been based on anything that my client would have told me. I didn't have personal knowledge of whether they went or not.
The trips to Texas, and you're the one who went to Texas. Was that based on your knowledge from Mr. Wade?
It would have been something that came from the client. I cannot tell you that I have any personal knowledge of any trip other than what would have been said by the client.
You went on these trips. I'm asking if you have knowledge from Mr. Wade. You also typed California. Was that something that you gained from knowledge from Mr. Wade?
It would have been from the client at this particular point. Yes, it would have been from the client.
And when you told me that the trip to California was to move her daughter out there, would that have been something you gained from Mr. Wade?
Thank you, Judge. Any knowledge that I have of any trip would have come from my client at the time.
Damn, how did shit, how much longer
You told
she
us
got?
last week that
Sheesh.
Mr. Wade used your credit card one time. Do you know when that was?
I do not.
Relevance to why we're here today.
Well, I think this would be impeachment of Mr. Wade's testimony if Mr. Wade testified that he had never used anyone else's credit card
I
before.
object to ask him because it was covered during the last hearing. You acknowledged that Mr. Wade used his credit card.
Judge,
So,
I asked when.
yes,
I didn't-
when? Okay,
I didn't ask, did he? I asked, when did he?
let's go there.
I do not have any dates
Court is
of
petty
when
as
Mr.
hell.
Wade used my credit card. I testified that we used the card for business. and that throughout the business, we would order paper or supplies or filing of depositions. I mean, the cost factor of cases is what I said, and that still applies today. Did he use my credit card? He did, but I can't tell you who he used that card, what the trip was for. I can't even tell you at this time where he went.
But he used it for a trip. Paid you back in cash.
I never testified that he paid me back in cash. I said that he would either pay me back, I said I couldn't remember. I do not recall. Sometimes he would write checks, sometimes he would pay cash. And that still applies today, that I do not recall him paying me back cash, but I do recall him paying me back.
This was when you were still, before your partnership split up, correct?
It would have been before I left the firm, yes. He wouldn't have used my card after I left the firm.
So we can at least narrow down the dates to that.
Before I left the firm, yes.
Okay, great. And Mr. Wade gave you details about meeting Miss Willis in Hateville or East Point, as it was called.
That's incorrect.
He did not tell you about that.
He didn't give me details.
He did not tell you about meeting with Miss Willis at an East Point or Hateville apartment?
At this time, I don't recall.
This will happen when all the information that you know is based on
No, I don't recall.
just back and forth conversation.
Where
This
did
shit
you
is
get that
going
information from then?
nowhere, bro. I know people is like, well,
Just
why
like
is the
he doesn't
judge
recall
letting
it,
this
you don't
happen
have that
and all this?
I asked if he got it from Mr. Wade, and
But
he
it's
says he
like-
doesn't recall. So then I asked where he got it from.
You
I do
kind of
not
gotta
recall where I
let
got
the
the
public
information from.
see that this argument, like this argument is trash. You kind of gotta let the
Mr.
people
Wade were
see
friends
this.
as well as business partners,
It's
correct?
unfortunate that we got to
We-
get
we
all
were
into
friends,
Fani
in
Willis
the
like
sense
personal
of
information because of
I've
this shit.
known him for,
But it's like niggas got to see how terrible this argument is. They
years.
position is.
Yes, we were friends.
And you definitely did not want to come and be a witness in this case, correct?
That is correct.
And it was after, and we talked about this earlier, that Gabe Banks called you and then Nathan Wade called one of your friends. It was after that that you hired Mr. Chopra to assist you in this matter, correct?
Was it after that?
Cause like all she can do is shit sling. All she can do is shit sling. That's all she's been doing is like this whole evidence you're hearing. The initial claims that they made in their initial filing about the
So,
financial gain, about
I
him
heard
being
Mr.
unqualified,
Chopra,
about him
and I
getting so
heard
much
Mr.
money.
Graham.
We passed
Now,
that. Now
Mr.
it's just
Graham's
did it
here,
start in
and,
2023 or not?
when I
This is a long
received the
shot. They trying to go
subpoena,
hit the home run
Mr. Graham
on.
was here at the last hearing, but he also had to
on
go to
perjury.
town, but he was present. Mr. Graham, I called, and I had started getting calls from media and I told him to respond to the media, I think, and that was somewhere around whenever you subpoenaed me. So it was, I can't tell you that it was that instance of those calls for Mr. Chopra. But I had engaged Mr. Chopra and Mr. Graham at that time.
I'm going to ask the question again because I didn't get an answer to it. After you got the phone call from Gabe Banks and from Nathan Wade to your
I think it was before that, but however, I think it was before that, is what I'm stating.
when you got from Gabe Banks, you called me immediately. Well, actually, you texted me and then you called me.
I didn't call you immediately, but yes, we did speak.
And you texted me about it as well.
That is correct.
And then we
I'll
spoke
be
after
damned if the
Mr.
biggest
Wade
witness
called your
against me
friend,
is my partner.
and we talked about that as well, correct?
That is correct.
And at that point, you didn't mention anything to me about being represented by Mr. Chopra.
But I didn't mention anything about Mr. Chopra or, that is correct.
Yes, that was only my question. Let's see.
Let's see. Yeah, bitch, you
I'm gonna show
struggling.
you two more.
You struggling.
All right, Ms. Merchant, we're going to do
Those are the
5
last
more
two
minutes.
questions. Thank you.
3:05,
Yeah.
I'm cutting you off.
Thank you.
He said, I'm done with your ass. You got about 5 more minutes. You got about 5 more minutes. Now, this is just a warm up, cause she light work. It's gonna get interesting when the other Trump attorneys, like when Trump's
Yeah, but-
attorneys, when Giuliani attorney get up there
You,
and try to rock him.
refresh your memory, and then I want to ask you questions.
They always be a little bit more pointed with their questions and how they do it. That's a little bit more. Cause this is just like, all right, where are you going with this? Listen, if they was actually making ground, I would have no problem being like, yo, he's. I mean, his credibility is what it is. The judge is already familiar with him, so he already made his decision on him.
Are these supposed to go together?
No.
Oh, these are two separate dates?
Completely different dates.
Okay, all right.
I mean, but the only utility he could serve is proving that the relationship started. We ain't even gotten close to that. We ain't gotten close to that. He ain't been able to give up that type of information. And so, shit, with him not serving the purpose that they want him to serve, it's gonna be
So, I know we
interesting to
talked
see
about
with how the other more seasoned lawyers
Text
approach
or
it.
just about
Cause she going the
footnotes.
gossip route and it ain't
But do
working.
you recall me asking you,
Hit that like button.
do you think it started before she hired him? And you said absolutely. Do you recall that?
I see that in the text message, yes.
Okay. And do you also recall me asking you how they would react if they would attack me? And you said, no, they will deny it.
Your Honor, objection as to speculation as to how he thinks they will react.
I think it goes to the motivations of the witness overall.
And you told me that they will deny it.
That's written in there, yes.
I just want one last opportunity. You're an officer of the court, correct?
I am.
And you're under oath today.
I am.
Is there any of your testimony from today or the previous days that you want to correct?
That I want to correct?
Yes.
No, I've told you everything that I've answered everything that you asked.
Thank you. Oh, Judge, just so co-counsel and the state can have them, for the record, I can admit those few that I showed, that would be.
Well, they weren't ever tendered,
And
so it's
in
just
case-
for,
I didn't know if they wanted
Right.
to use them, but I'll hold on to them.
if they need to be tendered at some point, then we can make them part of the record. All right, let me turn it over to
Yeah.
Mr. Sadow.
She gets an F
If you're with us
plus.
on Zoom.
F plus.
Thank you,
F
Honor. I
plus.
do have a few questions. First thing I'd like to know is whether the court reporter has
Mr. Sadow,
defense
this is
exhibits 26
Trump's
and
attorney.
27 from the last.
We have a different court reporter this time. We had to have someone else.
This
fill
is
in on such
Donald
short
Trump's
notice,
attorney
but I
for this
can
RICO case.
Potentially send those to you if you need them.
Well, I think I have working copies, but I want to make sure that the witness has a copy to look at.
All right, we can try to work through that logistical challenge. This is, you said 26 and 27?
I believe that's correct. And 26, I think, is the same text messages that Ms. Merchant was just asking about. It was 2 pages. I stapled it together, and it is dated January the 5th of this year.
All right.
Okay, so he
I
about to
can
get
print
into
off
the
a
text
copy now, but
messages.
why don't we start off with the questions that you have?
Okay, because
I can
that's
do
where
it
I
here.
want. That's where I'm going to start, but I'll see what I can do to work through it.
It's not going to work? Here, I'll email them to you.
Don't they got the same copies? Oh, Ashley Merchant got the same copy she was just showing them.
Okay.
That's crazy.
All right, Mr. Sadow, why don't we start with your question, then we'll
This
see
is
if
like
we actually
finding out
need
that
to
your
get a
homie
copy of
was
those exhibits
snitching
in
on
front of
you.
the witness.
It's like if
All
your
right.
homie was snitching on you and he's really, pointing the finger at court.
Mr. Bradley,
Yes, I'm here.
all of a sudden I've lost you on the screen. There we go. Well, you're on the Zoom. You're on YouTube, but you're not on the Zoom itself. But Not that I can see.
What he watching on YouTube? How the attorney watching
I'm
it
here.
on
I
YouTube?
can hear you.
No, I know. I think his visuals may be a little different. So hold tight, Mr. Sadao. We could try to correct that. So
Yeah, he was on. He was on when Miss Merchant was asking questions.
We need
Able
to add
to
a.
see you and him.
I know. We need to add a spotlight to Mr.
Yeah, I was about to
the
say he
witness
just
stand
they
and
just
a
don't know how
spotlight
to
Mr.
don't know how to work
Sadao.
Zoom.
We don't need all the other
That's all.
boxes.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you very much.
Well, then hold tight, Mr. Sadao. We need to add you as well.
Huh. He hot. Look, boy, he gonna have a stiff one after this.
All right. Now we're ready.
Thank
he
you,
gonna,
sir.
He going straight to the bar.
Mr.
after
Bradley,
this.
you have referred to Mr. Wade as your client, correct?
Correct.
You understand that the court has ruled that communications that you had with Mr. Wade are not privileged, correct?
No, I'm aware that the court ruled that
Certain.
one
Certain.
specific dealing with the time frame of one specific conversation wasn't privileged.
Then I'm going to ask Your Honor, if it's that the limitation or
Excuse me. To clarify, I think, sure.
Sorry.
Mr. Sadao, you asked whether all communications with Mr. Wade, I think, were covered. That was not the extent of the ruling. The only
Fucking
ones
up
that I
again.
deemed were not covered
They fucking up
and that I'd
again.
asked about in the
Green in the
hearing, because
building.
those are the ones that were relevant, were any communications Mr. Wade made regarding the existence or non-existence of a romantic relationship with Miss Willis.
fine, thank you, Your Honor. I
Yeah,
understand.
get it together. Get it together.
So going back to this line of inquiry, when you say you don't have personal knowledge, what I want to ask you to start with is very simple. Did you have communications with Mr. Wade about the relationship between Mr. Wade and Miss Willis? It's a simple yes and no.
Yes.
And is it your testimony that during the time you were representing him, which I understood started sometime in 2018, is that correct?
That's the time frame that I remember, yes.
Is it your testimony under oath that with regard to conversations with Mr. Wade about his relationship with Miss Willis, that you only had one such conversation during the time you represented Mr. Wade?
One conversation of what? I apologize.
The only thing
broke up.
the only thing I'm asking about is that area that the court said is not privileged, which is the relationship between Mr. Wade and Miss Willis. You've testified that during the time you represented Mr. Wade from 2018 on, that you only had one conversation with him in reference to the relationship between Miss Willis and Mr. Wade. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's fairly accurate. Yes.
Okay, so out of the entire time, I'm talking about could be 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021.
He trying
when
to
did
get
you
him on
stop
something.
representing,
He trying to get him
Mr.
on
Wade?
something.
It was a few months after I left the firm.
All right, give me the approximate time.
I left maybe June, July of 2022, maybe.
Okay, so that would suggest that for, assuming it's 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and half of 2022, which is in the vicinity of 4 to 4.5 years, you're testifying under oath you had one conversation about a relationship between Mr. Wade and Miss Willis. Is that correct?
I don't recall having any other conversation with Mr. Wade about him and Miss Willis.
Is it your testimony then that you don't remember any other conversation, or there wasn't any other conversation besides the one?
An object is to ask and answer.
I think he's drilling down. I think that's a fair question. Overruled.
I don't recall. I would say it was the one, but I don't recall.
You testified that you did have communications with Mr. Wade about him visiting with Miss Willis.
See, this
at
is more pointed
a
question.
condo
You know what
or
I'm saying?
apartment,
This is a
correct?
more strategic question that's being asked.
I don't think I testified that I had a conversation. I testified that any knowledge that I would have known anything about any condo would have come from that, but I don't recall a conversation about that. I do not recall a conversation about that.
Do you recall any other thing at this point in time under oath that would indicate when the relationship started between Mr. Wade and Miss Willis?
I do not know when the relationship started between Mr. Wade and Miss Willis. I cannot
So I'm
recall
gonna-
that. I can't.
It's
I'm
a
sorry,
smarter.
go
It's a
ahead.
smarter
I'm going to drill
attorney.
down on that now, okay?
Yes, sir.
He still ain't getting
Mr.
nowhere though.
Wade
But
was
he's at least
As
talking
the
about what
special
needs to be
prosecutor on
discussed.
November 1st of 2020.
He still ain't getting nowhere though.
You're aware of that, correct?
I have my contracts to show when I started. No one showed me the contract of when he started, but but if he has a contract for November 1st of 2021, then that's correct.
I'm going to suggest to you that the record will reflect that the contract between Miss Willis and Mr. Wade was November 1st of 2021, correct? I want you just to accept that, okay? Is it your testimony that you don't know under oath whether or not there was a relationship between Mr. Wade and Miss Willis before the contract?
I do not recall any dates of when the relationship started. So whether you are pinpointing a date of when his contract started or not, I'm telling you, I did not recall any specific date that he flat out said anything about a relationship with Miss Willis.
Okay. Now I want to go, based on what you've just said, let's go to what was Defense Exhibit 26.
Now he getting into the text
Okay?
messages.
In Defense Exhibit 26, which I showed you last time, was 2 pages of text messages between you and Miss Merchant, correct?
Correct.
Now,
He
the
may
first
get beat
page
up now, y'all.
starts
He
off
might get
by
beat up
saying,
now.
Miss Merchant, like just date, don't hire him. Do you think it started before she hired him? You see that?
I wish you could just say in court, I was being a hater, nigga. Like I didn't have to leave the
Yes, I see
firm.
it. Yes.
We wasn't
And your
tight like that.
response to that
And I was just saying stuff that I felt
was
like, you know what I'm saying, was
absolutely
salacious or
correct.
whatever. Like I was just because I wasn't feeling it.
All right. So, Mr. Sadow, I do think we went through a lot of these texts.
We didn't go through this whole one.
Just a second, Mr. Sadow. All
All
right.
right, they catching him up. They catching him up. What you gonna do,
I'm sorry,
Judge?
Mr. Sadow. Well, you said we didn't go through this particular one?
No, we stopped right there. I want to go.
No, I answered because
No,
this is the
there's no-
exact language that she just stated a few minutes ago. You can read it back
Okay, Mr.
in the
Sadow.
record.
Are you saying both of these 2 exhibits weren't already covered by Miss Merchant?
Y'all shouldn't have
It was
let
not
her go
gone-
first.
This particular language was not gone into. I'm doing it based on the exhibit
Y'all
itself.
shouldn't have let her go first.
Well, let's do it this way. I now moved into evidence defense exhibit number 26.
Okay.
All right, and I'd have to search through my notes, but does anyone recall that one actually been tendered in a minute already?
No, it was only presented to your honor for you to take back into camera ex parte to speak with Mr. Bradley and his counsel.
Okay.
Okay,
Ms.
but he
Merchant is
pulling out
indicating
something
that it
new
was
now.
admitted.
I thought Mr. Sadow admitted it, but I'm organizing and putting them back in order. So I think it might be easier if I just admit.
Amateurs.
Of the
All right.
topics I'm
Amateurs.
referring to.
All right, so
y'all,
defense
y'all
exhibits
said
26 and
y'all talking about
27.
Mr. Willis or Mr. Wade
being
ain't had no
tendered.
wasn't qualified.
Actually, only 26 at this time.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, defense exhibit 6. Any objection from the state?
26.
26.
I'm going to object as it relates to foundation and authentication. It was used to, during the last hearing for the purposes of refreshing his recollection. And it's my recollection is that it didn't refresh his recollection, but I would renew my objection as to asked and answered and cumulative.
Okay. As to foundational authentication, I think Mr. Bradley has recognized them as texts that he sent and received. So I think I'd overrule on that basis. Any other objections to their admissibility from any other defense counsel? And seeing none, defense exhibit 26 is now admitted.
The state taking L's too, though. Like this is at best is gonna be
After you
a
said the word
stalemate. But the
absolutely,
defense needed to be more than
on
a
your
stalemate.
own, you said
They need to
it
win off
started
this.
when she left the DA's office and was judge in South Fulton.
Your Honor,
They
I'm gonna
met at
object.
Yeah.
Asked and answered.
All right, understood, Mr. Body. I'm going to let Mr. Sato have a few minutes on this, and we'll go from there. But
Judge, well, I'm sorry. I did answer this. I answered it for Ms.
understood.
Merchant. I stated that I was speculating. The judge, someone objected to the speculation, but this was the exact same language.
All right, well, thank you
when
for
I
that
said
recap,
that I
Mr. Bradley. Mr. Sato was
speculate.
asking the question in a slightly different manner, and I'm going to give him a little bit of leeway to do that. So, Mr. Sato.
All right, I hesitate to have to start back where I was.
It's
but
crazy when
after
like
the word absolutely.
because like the
You,
judge is
on
trying to
your
be
own,
fair and all that.
said
But
it
being
started
fair
when
means
she
that you be on
left
some
the
bullshit
DA's
about these
office
people's lives to
and
give
was
them a
judge
shot to
in
make some
South
shit up.
Fulton. They met
That's what
at
being
the
fair means.
Municipal
That's the
Court
crazy shit about it.
CLE conference. That's what you said, correct?
That is correct.
Now, it's your testimony, at least so far, that when you on your own gave those two statements in the text, that you were merely speculating and did not have that knowledge from Mr. Wade. Is that your testimony under oath?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I testified to. Yes, sir.
So you on your own came up with the whole notion that it started when she left the DA's office and was judge in South Fulton. That's,
Yeah.
according to you, that's speculation on your part, correct?
Objection. Asked and
Overruled.
answered.
Answer the question, Mr. Bradley.
Yes, that's speculation on my part. Yes.
Right. It had nothing to do with what Mr. Wade had told you, correct?
I answered your question. I was speculating to the answer. That is correct.
So maybe you can tell the court in your own words, why in the heck would you speculate
There you go.
in this text message
Yeah.
and say that it started when she left the DA's office and was a judge in South Fulton?
Why would you do that?
Why
I was
would
being
you
a hater.
speculate and say that in a text?
Because I was being a hater. Just say it.
I knew they had met at the municipal court conference.
How
Honesty
do you
is
know
the best
that?
policy.
I'll stop you right there. How did you know that?
I answered that at the last.
I'm asking
I knew
you
that.
now.
I knew
Sir,
that
I'm
because
asking you
when
now. I'm asking you questions, and you are in a situation where you get to give answers. I'm
Mhm.
asking you, how did you know that?
how did I know when they
Somebody
met?
Somebody told you that, right?
When they met?
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Who told you?
Mr. Wade told me when they met.
So you had more than one conversation about the relationship between Mr. Wade and Miss Willis because he told you where he met her,
Yes,
correct?
incorrect. Incorrect.
It's incorrect.
It's incorrect.
Let's go back
He-
to the exhibit. Why would you speculate that that's when they started the relationship?
I thought he was getting a
What
little
would
leeway. And
cause
who told you?
to put that down as speculation?
Because I was
don't
hating.
recall, but why I thought that it started at that time. But I do recall that he only met her, and I testified to that he met her at that conference, which was in 2019.
Right. You knew that Ashley Merchant represented a defendant in this case when you were text messaging with her.
He putting his feet
correct?
to the fire. This ain't hurting
Yes, I
Fani
did.
Willis and them
Yes.
as much as
You
it's hurting
knew
this
that
nigga.
the
Like,
reason she was asking you questions
they making him look
about
bad.
Mr. Wade was because she was trying to show when the relationship began, correct?
No,
There you
that's
go.
not.
Yeah.
It's
Don't let him
not
catch you. Don't let him
correct.
catch you up.
Text message.
Don't let him catch you up. Tell him. It was It was she got the numbers wrong.
Yes, but
Text message-
what messages were before this message, before she sent that?
I can't answer that question because I don't have them. All I have is what's in front of you. And it
Yes.
says that she says, do you think it started before she hired you? So you knew, as the counsel for a defendant in this case, that Miss Merchant was asking you specifically about the knowledge that you had
He on
regarding
his
the
head.
timing of the relationship between Wade and Miss Willis, correct?
I mean, based on this, yes, I see
And
what was asked.
And in response to that, you answered directly on your own what you now claim to be speculation, right?
That's correct.
So I ask you one more time before I move to the next part of this. Why would you speculate when she was asking you a direct question about when the relationship started?
I have no answer for that.
Except for the fact that you do in fact know when it
Ooh.
started, and
Ooh.
you don't want to testify to that in court. That's
Overruled.
the best explanation, isn't it?
This is a completely
Overruled.
argumentative.
The judge over.
That's the true explanation, because you don't want to admit it in court, correct?
No, I have no direct knowledge of when the relationship started.
I'm not going to go back through that again. But if you didn't know, and you were asked specifically as this exhibit shows,
Mhm.
maybe you can explain why you wouldn't say, I don't know.
Cause he was hating, and he was gossiping.
Is that a question? You're
Oh,
asking me
yeah,
a question to
definitely.
answer?
Definite question.
State that again. I apologize.
If you're being asked, as we've just gone through with this text message from Miss Merchant,
Yes.
as the attorney for a co-defendant,
Yes.
and she's asking you about the relationship, and she's clearly asking you about the timing, why wouldn't you just have said in response, I don't know when it started?
I don't know why I didn't say I don't know.
Maybe, again, it's because you know what the truth is, and that's why you answered exactly the way you did in Defense Exhibit 26, correct?
No, I can't sit here and tell you that what you just stated was correct.
Right. What you want the court to believe, and you want the rest of us to believe, is that for some unknown reason, upon being asked a direct question about when the relationship started, you decided on your own to simply speculate and put it down in a text message, as opposed to putting down what you actually knew. That's what you want the court to believe, correct?
That was a lot. So can you break that down? I apologize. You're asking me, do I want the court to?
I mean,
To believe that instead
I
of
think
saying
this is a
nothing,
fair line of
you
questioning.
decided on your own.
It's
to
much better than
speculate.
Ashley Merchant, though.
Yes, I speculated. Yes, I've
that's-
stated that I speculated. Yes, sir.
Right. That's what you want the court to believe, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, now, then when you go to the next page of that, okay, you see it starts.
I gotta check and see who he was subpoenaed by.
In
Because if he
South
was
Fulton.
if he
Is
was
that what you have
subpoenaed
in
by the
front of you?
defense,
Second page.
what do y'all? I'm trying to figure out what y'all trying to get. I mean, so if he lying, he lying.
The second page that I have says that's
But if
what
he
I
don't,
figured.
if there's no concrete,
That may be cut off from the one that I have. I'm looking at my opening set line says in
They-
South Fulton. Is that
they not
on
getting
your
nothing
second
concrete
page?
from him. It's not happening. Donnie said he's gonna be
No,
reduced to
so
ambulance chasing. Hell
If you're
yeah,
going
if that,
in order of the
he gonna be reduced to child support.
pages, no, neither page starts with South Fulton.
No, don't get caught up in whether it starts that way. Does the second page have a line in there that says in South Fulton?
Oh, yes, I apologize. So, yes,
That's fine. I
yes,
just want to make sure that we're on the same page.
yes.
Okay. You say after in South Fulton, they met at the municipal court CLE conference, right? You see
Yes,
that?
that is good. Yes, that's correct.
And then Miss Merchant says, that's what I figured when he was married. Is this accurate? Upon information and belief, Willis and Wade met while both were serving as magistrate judges and began a romantic relationship at that time. You see, that's what she said, right?
No, I mean, so it says
Wait,
that at municipal court CLE. The only other thing here says that's what I figured when he was married. There's no response for me on that day. And then there's another response. I guess a question that says, is this accurate?
Okay, that's what I just went over with you.
Okay, so I don't have anything in that. Is this accurate at all? I can show the
No.
court. It's just
But see, he fucking up
it just
already
says,
again.
is this accurate with
When
the
he-
question mark? I don't have
because-
anything following that.
Because he said when he was
You don't
saying,
have-
"Is this
after that,
accurate?" He
upon
was talking
information
about
and belief,
changing
Willis
like
and
the
Wade met
financial
while
data that
both
was
were serving
attached to his
as
name.
magistrate judges and began a romantic relationship.
Yeah,
at
okay.
that-
It's I apologize. It goes to the next page. I apologize.
No problem. Just want to
Yeah.
make sure that we're.
So no, I see that now. Yes.
All right. So that's what I just read is
Mhm.
exactly what Miss Merchant said to you in the text, right?
Yes, that was in the text. Is it accurate upon further information? Yes, that's there.
And-
Yes.
Again, since you have told us that you were speculating when you gave the answer that we went over with previously, on this one, you don't say, I don't know. You simply correct her by saying no, municipal court, right?
Yes. So she asked, was it accurate? And I said it wasn't accurate. No, it wasn't accurate. It was municipal court.
Right. And when you said it wasn't accurate, it was municipal court, didn't say, no, that's not accurate. They didn't start a romantic relationship at that time, correct?
No,
He had
but I
already
was referring
speculated,
to
though.
the municipal court. No, it wasn't accurate as it applied to the. I was answering the no municipal court, meaning when she said, "Is that accurate?" It was to the municipal court and not magistrate court.
Okay. But you didn't say that the rest of what she asked you was accurate. You didn't say, no, that's inaccurate. That's not true. That's not accurate. You simply said the only thing that wasn't
He on
accurate
his head though.
was municipal court should be there instead of magistrate.
He
right?
on his head.
So I was answering the question of it was a compound question,
Can you
and
ask-
I was answering the question of. She wrote magistrate court, and I said no municipal court.
See,
Right. It's not
what's dangerous about this
one statement
is that
upon information and belief. I'm sorry.
Okay, hold on, hold on.
I know the feedback and the delay is complicates things, but I think you've adequately made your point here, and I don't think we need to belabor it much longer. Let's move on to the next issue.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Bradley, and your lawyer meet with anyone from the district's office?
No, I mean
Sure.
no, not that I know. I'm aware of. No,
Have you
I
had
did not
any?
meet to anyone.
I'm sorry, I
I
cut
did
you
not
off.
meet with anyone outside of my attorneys.
Did you have any conversation? Not
I did
meeting,
not.
conversation.
I did not.
So you have not spoken, if I understand you correctly, prior to coming into court today, you've not spoken with the prosecutors,
No,
right?
I've not spoken to the prosecutors. I've not spoken to defense.
Have you spoken to Mr. Wade?
No,
So as far as just getting into the courtroom today, there's been no contact or conversation in it with any of the parties we just went over, right?
there has not been any contact with defense or the state at all.
I think I have basically just one or two more questions.
Let's see.
Why would you see the need to speculate when
He
you
going
were
back to that.
texting with Miss Merchant?
I think we did cover that one, Mr. Sadow.
I mean, it's a good question.
I think that exact question was already put to him.
It's a good question. It's a good question.
What would
And
be
he
the- what
need
would be
to
the
just
next
say,
one?
and he need to just say, I was being a hater. Like I didn't.
I'm trying to look. Let's go to 27.
That's it. Just say I was being a hater. We don't got to
Defense Exhibit
assume
27. Do you have that now, sir?
I do,
that
sir.
he knows. He
Would
he
you
could have
look
just been
at it and
making
tell me
shit
whether
up.
or not the Defense Exhibit 27 appears to be accurate? Because I want to seek to introduce it into evidence. It consists of an email to you from Ms. Merchant and a text response from you, correct?
But the text response was not in response. So yes, it does consist of the email and a text response. I'm not saying that the text response applies to
That boy head
the
shining
entire
though, ain't
email
it?
that was sent.
That boy head shining.
All I've asked you right now is, is
Yes,
the email and the text, are those accurate in the interaction that makes up Defense Exhibit 27?
as it applies to the stapling of the email and the stapling of a text message chain, yes, that is Defendant's Exhibit 27. This is, it's accurate.
Okay, I would move Defense Exhibit 27 in. I believe it was treated the same way as 26 last time, Your Honor.
Same objections, Mr. Abadi?
Yes, Judge.
All right, overruled. Any other objections from defense counsel? Seeing none, defense exhibit 27 is admitted.
And, Your
Anything
Honor, I
else,
don't
Mr.
know.
Sato?
Yeah, I don't know whether you'll find this objectionable or not. I'll ask it, and obviously,
All right.
Mr. Bradley, you realize that if you were to testify under oath, that you knew from Mr. Wade that the relationship between him and Miss Willis existed before the contract in November 1st of 2021, that if you testified that you knew that from Mr. Wade, that would show that both Miss Willis and Mr. Wade had lied under oath. You know that, don't you?
Yeah,
I'm gonna object.
I think that's going to call for an opinion on the credibility of another testifying witness. So I don't think that would be an appropriate question.
Then that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Sato. Mr. Stockton.
Man, he gave him
We'll see.
a
Mr. Bradley, do I understand from your prior testimony that Ms. Merchant
I think this is
sent
Rudy
you a
Giuliani's
motion to
judges.
review?
or
prior
Rudy
to her
Giuliani's
filing
attorneys.
I'll call some cumulative answers.
Right. I'm going to give him just a little bit. All right, Mr. Stockton. Maybe this is going somewhere else.
We'll see.
Did Mrs. Merchant send you a motion prior to January 8th of 2024 for you to review?
That is correct.
And did you in fact review that motion?
That is correct.
And did you indicate to Ms. Merchant that the contents of that motion seemed okay to you?
Well, so you're
he-
referring to Exhibit 27, which, as I stated a few minutes ago, one is an email, one is a text chain. So in the text chain, when I never responded to the email, I never responded looks good or anything to the email that was sent to me. However, in the text chain, what you all are trying to merge
See that in the
together
building.
is the fact that I was asked about the contract, and that contract was $74,000, and me being added back to that. So when I said, and I think before in that text, it referred to me being added back, and at that time I said yes, looks good.
Okay. He able to
You're
keep up.
aware,
He got his
and
wits
you
about it.
recall that when Ms.
He's above
Merchant
water currently.
presented you with that motion, she asked you not to disclose it to anyone until she filed it. Is that correct?
We are covering, I think, the last 5 or 6 questions. We've covered ground. Let's get to that ultimate point.
I'm trying to get there,
All
Judge, I
right.
promise you.
Okay.
Repeat the question, I'm sorry.
It's hard to read the judge.
She asked you not to disclose that motion to anybody until she filed.
It's hard to read the judge because on one hand he keeps getting annoyed with the defense because they hammering these same points and it ain't going nowhere. But then on the other hand, he's allowing this hearing to take place the way that it is. So
That was sent.
Yes.
I knew that she was going to file a motion. Yes. I do not think that that was the final draft, or it could have been that she was working on it. But yes, I knew that she was going to file some motion. Yes.
And you knew that she presented that motion to you for your review so that she could make sure it was accurate, correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. All this is asked and answered in cumulative. Yeah.
All right, noted. I think Mr. Stockton's getting to the next point. So why don't we just ask that one?
Is that correct?
Did you
Why
know
don't
that?
we
I
com-
thought
why don't we
you.
combine that with the next question, so we're not having to lay bit by bit every single time.
Mr. Bradley, you knew that Mrs. Merchant was relying on your review to ensure the accuracy of that
Substantiate.
motion prior to filing it, correct?
Okay, yeah.
Speculation as to what he knew that Miss Merchant knew.
No,
But I do.
I'd overrule that. Mr. Bradley?
No, so once again, I was excluded from
Stay on
the
your square.
footnote of
Stay on your square.
that motion. And my review of it, and I said, hey, you need to add me back to the footnote because I did have a contract and I did receive 74,000.
If I may help you out, let's talk just about that part of the motion that deals with the relationship between the District Attorney Willis and Mr. Wade. When you
I wonder
reviewed
why to
that,
change your heart.
you knew that that Ms.
No.
Merchant,
No, I did not know that she was relying on me to
Substantiate.
for any relying on me for any accuracy other than what was put in there
if there
about the
was,
74,000.
Mr. Bradley, if there was something patently false in that motion, you would have told Ms. Merchant, wouldn't you?
I can't say that I would or wouldn't have. I don't know what I would have told Ms. Merchant.
If there was something
Well, we know you
patently
told her about some other shit.
speculative, you would have
In
told
text
Ms.
messages.
Merchant, wouldn't you?
Gossiping ass.
I don't know what I would have told Ms. Merchant. She asked me, was it accurate? We were discussing the 74,000 that was left out.
Again, if I may direct you just to that portion dealing with the relationship between Mrs. Willis and Mr. Wade. You didn't tell her that there was anything patently false in that because you didn't see anything patently false in that motion as it relates to the relationship.
Repeat your question. I'm so sorry.
You did not inform
Come on,
Mrs.
nigga, keep
Merchant
up.
that there was anything patently false in that motion that you were presented with as it concerns the relationship because you did not see anything that was patently false, correct?
Objection asked and answered cumulative.
All right, next question, Mr. Stockton. Sustained.
And you didn't see anything that was speculative in there either, did you?
And answered
I
cumulative.
know, sustained, Mr. Stockton.
Okay, they got them a
I just
couple.
want to ask you one more question.
Shut
I'm
up.
coming
Shut
at
a
it from
couple
the other
questions
way
down.
that Mr. Sadow did. Did anybody from the district attorney's office or any witnesses in this case contact you about Miss Merchant's motion from January the 8th of 2004 until today?
Did anyone contact me about her motion?
Yes, from the district attorney's office or any witnesses or anybody else involved with the case besides the defense?
Come
Other
on
than
now.
the call the only personal call that I had was with Gabe Banks. I never spoke to anyone else, and to my knowledge, he's not a part of this. So
That's all I got, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Stockton.
Yeah,
Mr.
that
Durham, if
still
you're
ain't-
still with us.
He ain't going
No
nowhere.
question,
I
Joe.
mean,
Thank you, sir. Mr.
does the
McDougal.
nigga sound credible? Nah, not really. I mean, but his credibility ain't the basis of, you know what I mean, the argument.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bradley.
I got another
You
angle that I'm
have
gonna go
certain
after these
information
questions.
About the relationship.
Because it's something that's
between
talked about that ain't
Mr.
really,
Wade
it's something
and
that's
Ms.
happening
Willis
that's not
that
being
is not
discussed.
privileged, correct?
Well, that was my determination, so I think he disagrees with it. So what we're going to say his opinion's a little irrelevant on that point.
Do you understand that the court has ruled that certain information that you have about the relationship between Ms. Willis and Mr. Wade is not privileged?
I have the court's ruling, as I understood it, and as my lawyers and I understood it, of the privilege not existing was based off of a conversation that was had in my office, in the back of my office, which was confidential, with Mr. Wade and I. That's what was asked of me on yesterday, and that's what the ruling, to my knowledge, unless I'm being corrected here now and saying that it's more, it was that particular piece that the judge said did not have privilege.
And have you testified already today to the sum total of your knowledge of the relationship that is outside the scope of the privilege according to the court's
Where is
ruling?
this going?
Can you ask that again? I'm sorry, I didn't understand it.
Because it ain't
Referring
going
to
nowhere.
what you understand to be the information that is not privileged, have you testified to the sum total of that information?
I think I have, yes. I think I've testified to that, yes.
All right, sir. That's my questions.
Thank you, Mr. McDougal. Mr. Rice.
I feel like they're gonna try, like just like I said last time, they was gonna come. Because remember, I predicted that they was gonna come back with the phone records.
Bradley, at least
I think
as
they
of
trying to do
February
this
15th,
again.
when you first testified,
I think they trying to do this
that
again.
You still considered yourself a friend with Mr. Wade, correct?
So why'd you gossip on that nigga?
I think
Y'all
I said
was
that,
tight.
yes. I think I
Why'd
did,
you
yes.
gossip
And
on your
you've been
boy?
friends with Mr. Wade for over 10 years, correct?
That would have been fairly accurate, yes.
Yeah.
And
He
you
was
recall
gossiping to this
communicating with Ms.
boy.
Merchant about this case and about Mr. Wade and Ms. Willis's relationship, correct?
I'm going to object as to asked and answered and cumulative by all three of the previous.
Sure. We don't delay that foundation. Why don't we combine it with the next question where you've got a new point to make?
Thank you.
Um,
Jesus.
Mr. Bradley,
Please make a
when
new
you
point.
when you communicated with Ms. Merchant, did you tell her any lies about Mr. Wade and Ms. Willis's relationship?
Ooh, did you tell her any lies? What you gonna say? I speculated. Keep it up. You gotta say you speculated. Because if you don't say you didn't lie, come on.
Did I lie to Miss?
That's a simple question, Mr. Bradley. You're a lawyer. Did you lie to Ms.
He in his
Merchant
ass.
when you told her facts
He on
about
his ass.
Mr. Wade and Ms. Willis's relationship?
Come on. Come on.
Not
Stick-
that I recall. I don't recall.
Tell her, bro. Speculate. Just say speculate and ain't lying.
I mentioned earlier that I speculated on some things.
And
I've
speculating
testified
isn't
to
lying.
what I did know. So I can't recall whether or not
You can't. Yeah, this nigga here. Because see, the problem with that I can't recall
Bradley,
is it
speculation
leaves
is kind of a
room.
weaselly lawyer word. Let's speak truth here.
I'm gonna
You're under
object
oath.
to argumentative at this point, Your Honor. It's not
He called him a
relevant
weasel.
question.
All
Mr.
right,
Bradley.
Let's find a question, Mr. Rice.
Mr. Bradley.
He said
When
you
you were
doing weaselly
communicating
work.
different details of the relationship between Miss Willis and Mr. Wade to Mrs. Merchant, did you lie to her about any of those details?
Objection asked and answered twice.
I don't think he's answered it yet.
I don't recall ever whether any
This
of
should
it
be
was
getting me hot.
a lie or not.
Well,
This time, so
at the time you were communicating with Miss Merchant, you were still friends with Mr. Wade, correct?
You was doing okay. Now he got you looking real bad. You was doing okay. Tell the man I speculated. The truth was unknown, but I came up with
Yes.
an idea.
And at the time you were communicating with Ms. Merchant, you knew that she was talking to you in her role and capacity as an attorney in this case, correct?
Correct.
And you knew that she was going to use that information to somehow benefit and file a motion, benefit her client, correct?
I did not know that.
Okay,
So
see,
I did not, oh, I'm sorry.
so as an attorney yourself, you are testifying here under oath that you had no idea what Miss Merchant was going to do with all the details that you were giving her about Wade and Willis's relationship.
So at the time, no, I did not. I knew that Miss Merchant was gathering information. That is correct.
Okay. And did you lie to her when you told her that the relationship began
All right.
before 2020?
I don't think we need to drill into specifics. He's covered it at a high level. I don't think we're going to get much out of this.
Mr. Bradley, isn't it true? The only thing that has really
That could be
changed-
terrible
Well,
or a great
You
thing
were
for the
speaking to
state.
Miss Merchant, whether by text or by telephone.
Okay, where we going?
You never said to her that I don't remember or that I'm speculating, correct?
That question has been asked 3 times. This
I
is the
don't
third.
recall.
Well, you've looked through a whole lot of text messages. Do you remember ever seeing
Yeah, they asking the
any
same
communication
questions.
from you that said, I don't remember?
No, just say no. Y'all be drawing this shit out. No. In there, it doesn't show. It doesn't show that. I never said that in it. Come on.
Yep, through the messages that, I don't have all the messages in front of me, but no, I don't recall if I ever said I don't remember.
Do you recall seeing any text messages where you replied to her or gave her details where you said, I am speculating about this detail?
No, I never used the word speculating, no.
There you go. You gotta
And the only thing
you
that's
gotta be honest
changed
about some
between
shit.
then
Everything
and
can't be
now
drawn out.
is that phone call from Nathan Wade's friend, Grave Banks, correct?
Mm.
No, well, Gabe was my friend, and I actually stated that the first day that I was here was that I've known Gabe for a few years,
Okay.
and that we were but we are fraternity brothers, and so I never said that.
I wonder what frat they in. I feel
that
like it's either they
anything
either Q's or
changed
alphas.
behind
They either Q's or alphas.
Gabe Banks.
So you never told Miss Merchant that you were worried that they were threatening you?
Objection asked and answered when he was asked this on February 16th and today.
Mr. Rice, we've covered this.
And just to be clear, you didn't attend college with Mr. Banks, did you?
I did not attend college with Mr. Banks.
When you referred to him as your fraternity brother, y'all just both happened to have pledged the same fraternity, different colleges. different
Yes,
chapters.
nigga. Black people know what that shit means.
Well, that's what we consider fraternity brothers, yes, sir.
And
You know, this nigga confused about fraternities, frats, and
as a
shit.
normal course of your relationships with your friends, do you pass on lies about your friends?
Ooh! This is what you set yourself up to get ass, bro. Cause you was on some hater
Have I
shit.
passed on a lie about a friend?
Either you lying
that what
right
you're
now,
asking?
or you was
Is
on
that
some
something
hater
you
shit.
normally do, Mr. Bradley? Do you tell lies about your friends?
I
He said they got to be
Have I told
AKAs the
lies
way they
about friends?
concept
I could have. I don't know.
Do you tell lies
Wow.
about your friends about a case of national importance?
with friends like these.
All right, overruled.
I could have. I don't know.
He said I could.
Mr. Bradley, I notice you're not looking at me.
I'm looking at you on the screen only because I was accused of, and I did the same thing to Mr. Sadow when he was on the
What's the
screen.
next question, Mr. Rice?
Yo, I told you
no
that
further questions, Judge.
the white
Thank you,
men
sir.
have
Mr.
the,
Gillum.
you know what I'm saying? They have the audacity to talk crazy to you while you was up there. I don't know, like Ashley Merchant for the position that she was
Good
in.
afternoon.
She
Mr.
should have
Bradley.
asked it like, so you lied to me.
A few questions. A lot
Uh,
of folks have taken up the questions that I wanted to ask, but I've got a few left here.
We'll see.
We'll see. You said Mr. Bradley, you said you didn't know what Ms. Merchant was going to be doing with the motion that she sent you. You remember that testimony a few minutes ago?
I think I said I didn't know that. I knew that she was gathering information. Yes.
Well, let's look at the title of the motion that she sent you. Do you remember
That was
reading?
sent on the 6th.
Excuse me. Do you remember reading the defendant Michael Roman's motion to dismiss grand jury indictment as fatally defective? and motion to disqualify the district attorney, her office, and the special prosecutor from further prosecuting this matter? Do you remember seeing that in the draft that you read and reviewed?
Yes.
So when you tell this court that you didn't know what she was going to do, she kind of gave you a hint, didn't she, in the title of the motion that she sent for you to read? Didn't she? Yes or no?
Yeah, if they saying that they intimidated him to not do this shit, I wonder what that conversation looked like and what it sounded like. I wonder what it sounded like if that's what happened.
That what she wanted was information from you so that she could then file a motion to dismiss the grand jury indictment, to motion to disqualify the district attorney and her office and the special prosecutor from further prosecuting the matter, right?
I'm going to object to speculation.
You knew that, didn't you?
Overruled.
Yes or no?
When she sent that motion, yes.
Okay. And you knew that the special prosecutor that to whom she was referring in that motion was Mr. Wade,
It
correct?
was your boy,
You knew that.
and you snitched.
Because you read the motion. You said you reviewed it, correct?
Yes.
And we're not going to go over all of the, number one, because we don't have time, and number two,
Or
the
gossip. I'm
court
gonna say
wouldn't
you
let me.
gossiped.
But
Y'all hit the
but
like
there
button
are
when
a
y'all
few
come
things
in.
that I do want to ask you about in that response, in that aspect. Now, in that motion that you said you reviewed, on page 6 of that motion, well, on page 5, it starts off with, "How do we know this?" And there's a question mark.
All right.
Hearsay.
Yeah, Mr. Gillen, I can appreciate what you're doing. I think that's something you can do at argument. He's said as a whole that he got the motion, and he's had his response as to his opinion of how he handled it.
The
I
judge don't
see,
trust this nigga at
again,
all
this,
either.
really being necessary to go through it line by line of what.
Well,
he reviewed.
a little indulgence, Your Honor. I'm not going to go, this isn't going to be a 40-minute death march through the motion. I would like to ask about a few bullet points that capture under this, and then I'll move on. But I would ask the court's indulgence in that respect.
Again, I think we've covered it, and I think that you'll be able to argue that this was in that motion and that he had a chance to review it, and he never objected to anything in there or raised it. So
That's the problem, and always ending up last asking
it very
questions.
much is. And next time asked, I'll reshuffle the order.
Well, we did earlier with Mr. Wade, and then
I hear you.
that was kind enough, and
I hear
then
you.
the court said we had to go.
Y'all need to draw straws next
There
time.
we go. I'll go with that.
All right. Anything
Thank you, Your
else?
Honor. That's all I
Okay.
have.
Okay. We have
Yeah.
Mr. Kucherov potentially.
How all y'all got the same
Yes, Your Honor, and I
question?
have just a few questions.
All right. Could we?
Y'all ain't thinking
spotlight to
outside
Mr.
the
Kucherov?
box
I'll
at
let you know when
all.
We're able to proceed.
They not thinking outside the box at all.
Judge, before he starts, can I take a 5-minute restroom? It's been
Absolutely.
2 hours.
Yeah, we've been going 2 hours. So let's come back at 4 o'clock. I'll also note for the record that we received a notification from Mr. Cromwell on behalf of Miss Latham, and he said he was waiving her presence. And I don't know if he later decided to join us by Zoom, but I don't think he was electing to log in. So after Mr. Kucherov, just in terms of timing, Mr. Abadi, do you have any expectation of how long your, if any, questioning would last?
I don't imagine my question will be very long.
Okay, well, let's get back in at 4 o'clock. Mr. Bradley, you can just step out of the jury room.
All right, so they taking a quick 5-minute break. Let that man take a restroom break and all of that. So here's the thing. I think what's happening that's being ignored for the most part is that the defense is over relying on testimony on the side of Nathan Wade to prove when this relationship started. The reason why this is kind of fucked up, right, is because no matter how long Nathan Wade maybe have been pursuing Fani Willis, so even if what's his name, whatever Bradley is being coy about, right? Because let's say that he expressed interest in Fani Willis early on, or he expressed interest in Fani Willis in 2020 or not 2019, right? The problem with that is if Fani Willis if they cool, but she not reciprocating that energy, it don't matter if he expressed interest in her at an earlier time. You feel me? The question is, when did they begin a romantic relationship? Now, the coyness and all this is, you know, black people, we got these talking phases. So we have these phases where it's just like there's interest, but we are not a thing. You know what I'm saying? It's just interest. And I think what's being played with is the idea that because there was interest, then that meant that they were romantically involved. And that's the problem, because it takes away the agency of the woman in this context. It's like, it don't matter if she was like, nah, I mean, he liked me and I thought he was cute, but we ain't, you know what I'm saying? We wasn't moving like that. It takes away from Fani Willis being able to be like, I don't care how he felt about me when he first met me. When I first started talking to him, it was a mentorship relationship. It was a learning relationship. You feel me? That's all it was when I first started talking to him. So when they try to, when the defense try to do this thing where it's just like, oh, well, what did y'all talk about? Well, what did he say? That still don't confirm a relationship. And even if they was romantically interested, it still doesn't confirm any type of conflict of interest even before he got the initial contract, because again, what we're talking about is like whether or not they were in a romantic, and that language matters. That language matters because like that's what's being asked of these people. You feel me? So I think it's sexist to think that you can prove the relationship by establishing where the man stood in this particular context. You know what I mean? Like I can guarantee you, I don't care how niggas feel about sexism or whatever, whether they think it's real or whatever the fuck the case is. The reality is a male prosecutor, a male district attorney would never have to go through this. Ever. Like, because it's like, it's really a question of nepotism. Like, are people getting benefits and getting access to opportunities because of relationships? We know nepotism is rife throughout, you know what I'm saying? Like, throughout the legal community. Well, I mean, really throughout every industry. And it ain't like niggas going around saying it ain't what you know, it's who you know. You feel me? So yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like, because it's a black woman, her sex life has to become salacious. Like, who she's connected to and who her romantic partners is has to become salacious. The next thing though is that what we kind of discovering from this conversation is all of this only happens. All of this is only existing because this nigga was gossiping behind the scenes. Ashley Merchant took this case understanding that she could use personal information that she gained from relationships that she had to create this controversy. That's all this is. If old boy would have kept his fucking mouth shut, if Terrence Bradley would stop fucking wouldn't be, you know what I'm saying? I can't even say pillow talking, but just like texting back and forth with this white woman, we wouldn't even be here. They wouldn't have a disqualification. They wouldn't have a disqualification case if it wasn't for this nigga. That's why this shit is bad. That's why it's so bad, or that's why it's even giving a little bit of legitimacy. It's because this nigga, like, who needs friends? And this was your divorce. I think it creates even more conflict when it's your divorce attorney, and they call it into question attorney-client privilege. Simply because it's like, well, you told her this stuff, bro. You, like, his attorney undermined attorney-client privilege when he told her this stuff. It's like, nigga, you are the greatest, you know what I'm saying? Like, I won't say, you know, like, you the problem. It's you the problem. And I think what he's starting to realize, because as I'm listening, I'm starting to ask myself, it's like, okay, if he was telling her the truth or if he was gossiping, either way, what would make him backtrack? What would make him backtrack? You feel me? Tiffany said, I wish she never hired him for this case. No one would have anything to say. He wasn't even her first pick. He wasn't even her first option. You know what I'm saying? I think he may have been the second, but the first option was another judge that she rocked with, a white man. And if he would have just said, yeah, all of this, none of this will be happening. But as much as we jump to being like, hey, she's responsible, Fani Willis is responsible because she hired him, I don't think that's fair. I do not think that's fair. Because, again, with knowing that most of these opportunities are based off relationships that people have with other people, there's nothing odd about what she did. The only difference between what Fani Willis did and everybody else that's also involved in nepotism is this nigga running his mouth. That's the only difference to this scheming, conniving ass white woman. That's the only difference. Because everybody else recognizes that, hey, this is the game. This is how it go. That's why networking is so important, because you developing these relationships means that's what's gonna get you these opportunities. That's not wrong, and it's crazy that we are currently in a place where people think, like, people jumping on this bandwagon about that being a relationship, but everybody running around talking about it's not what you know, it's who you know. And now, Blessing Hot Topic said, if they were not in an affair at the time she hired him, then I don't see the issue. And they wasn't, and was being ignored. And I think what's crazy about how Nathan Wade is being treated, the whole reason he got a divorce is because his wife cheated on him. And the only reason that they were still technically married for so long after they got the divorce is because they did it. They said they wanted to keep something together for the kids. So this man got cheated on, tried to do right by his wife, met a little district attorney, mentored her, developed a relationship, and now they prosecuting Donald Trump. And all of a sudden, one of the biggest cases of his life, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, y'all had a relationship. Let's make this thing the bigger deal. This would never happen to any white attorney. And I think what's even more crazy is that when it did happen to white attorneys, because most people that saying what they did was wrong don't know the case law. When this same thing happened to white attorneys, literally Georgia case law says the personal relationships of attorneys is expected to not be involved in their work. That's Georgia case law. There's nothing wrong with attorneys who have a relationship being involved in the same case, even when you're on opposite sides of the case. These two on the same side. Also, people ignore the fact that in order to remove the prosecutor, the conflict of interest has to be evident. It has to be explicit. It can't be speculated. You can't speculate that there's a conflict of interest. However, that's the only thing that's happening right now. This is when we talk about how it's a different legal system when it comes to black people and when it comes to white people. And Donald Trump has routinely shown the ability to manipulate the courts in a way that help him stay away from his responsibilities and accountability. Donald Trump is known to not pay people. Why is he able to get away with it? Because he used the courts. He's just now running into a circumstance where he can't manipulate the courts in a way, or he can't manipulate the justice system. You are Citizen Trump, and Citizen Trump got to be held accountable for what Trump did, period. But because we live in a TMZ, Real Housewives of Atlanta society, the salacious shit matter more than the facts. You still have people talking about, well, they had a relationship though. Duh, so what? That's still the conversation. Let's check and see. Okay. All right, y'all. I think we back. Thank y'all for listening to the rant. And we can get back to it.
The day that I don't have the date, but it was the date of whenever the phone call happened.
And you know his wife, Kyra Banks, works for the DA's office, right?
Yes, correct.
When was the last time you spoke to Mr. Wade?
I haven't spoken to Mr. Wade personally in 2 years, actually, when I left the firm.
Miss Willis?
I never, my interaction with Miss Willis was never where I would pick up the phone and talk to her, or that she would, or anything like that.
So you didn't hang out with Miss Willis? You didn't have a personal relationship with her?
No, I never had a personal relationship. I mentioned before that I went to a dinner that was after she was elected. That was at a steakhouse, but it was some 75 to 100 people there.
So you knew of her, you just didn't have a a business relationship or a personal relationship with her, or at least a close one.
I knew of her from she was in the DA's office and I had criminal cases, but I did not personally know her, no.
And not having known her, not really hanging out with her, you've got a contract from her office.
I'm gonna just object as to cumulative asked and answered throughout the multiple.
All right,
days.
Mr. Sheriff, I think we covered this ground on the 16th about the contracts.
We're
You have
done.
Are you going somewhere else with this?
I am, Judge. If you give me a little latitude, I'll tie
All
it
right.
up.
Okay, you may proceed.
Watch, he ain't going nowhere
You got a
else.
contract from the office, not
I'll be
knowing
surprised.
or having a good relationship or a good working business relationship with Miss Willis.
He got a
That's correct.
contract through networking. It's called
Because Nathan
networking.
Wade steered that contract to you.
I don't know how it came about, but it was presented to me at the office about the contract, correct?
Bro,
Who
when black
presented it
people
to you,
network,
Mr. Wade?
it's a crime.
Yes.
That's crazy. It's something weird about black people
He
getting
owed
other
you
black
money
people
at one
jobs.
point.
That's wild.
Say that again?
I think you said he owed you money at one point.
I don't recall saying that he owes me money.
Did he owe you money at one point?
Not that I recall saying that Mr. Wade owes me or owed me money. I don't recall ever saying that.
I didn't ask whether you ever said that. I said, did he owe you or did he owe you money in the past?
No, he didn't owe me money.
And so he steered this contract to you, to your office, and you weren't really talking to him? You hadn't talked to him for 2 years?
The contract was in 2021. I didn't leave until 2022.
So you didn't talk with him that whole time?
Bro, you got
I
your
left in
dates wrong.
2022. I
Yeah.
haven't really spoke to him since 2022 is what I stated.
The contract was in
When I
2021.
left June of
Fucking up.
2022, around June, August dates of 2022.
Other than one last question, other than your attorney, who did you speak with today about giving testimony in this case today?
They're
I
gonna try
spoke
to
to
watch them
my
try to get some more
attorneys, Charles
phone
Graham
records. They're gonna try to
and
get some
DC
more
Trouble.
phone records.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
All right.
Yeah, what they trying to do?
To make sure, did
Hold
Mr.
on.
Cromwell ever join us by Zoom? Do we?
All right, so what they trying to do is they ask him these questions because they're gonna go right back to the phone record shit they did last time, and then try to see if he's been
Mr.
discussed.
Cromwell has been apparently watching the proceeding. He had waived his client's presence and didn't have any other questions as well. So turning it over to Mr. Abadi.
And I have no questions.
All right. Mr. Bradley, you can step down. Thank you, sir.
Judge, you want these exhibits?
Is this it? Is this it? Or do we got any other witnesses? Do we have any other
Excuse you.
witnesses?
That's right.
I have a follow-up based on some questions from counsel, and it's just about the text.
And what, just by way of proffer, what about the text?
Just to admit, so when other people asked about the text, some of them weren't in the record today, so I organized them. They're the ones that have been talked about today, so I just organized them. I just wanted, for point of reference, to have them. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay. And do we need Mr. Bradley for that?
I don't believe so, but
Have you marked them?
yes,
Have you showed them to the state?
I gave a copy to the state, but so these are.
Mr. Bradley, just hang out just for 1 second, just to make sure.
I'll give you all of them.
What they doing? What they doing? It's like what she trying to clean up after she saw how real. I mean, even though they did real lawyer and they really didn't do shit because they really wasn't.
And while he's looking at that,
They ain't
Mr.
make no
Bradley
ground
handed me Defense Exhibit 23, 24, 25.
Judge, I didn't realize that they were in my folder.
Oh, is that from the hearing?
That-
From on Friday? All right, well.
Made
Thanks for
premium
returning
denim
those.
with the super chat. Thank you.
Let me make sure.
Let me see.
Because of your objections?
All right, because they just trying to figure some stuff out. But May Premium Denim said, you know, white people think they're the reasons we have any and everything. Black Wall Street was a prime example of our nepotism. Straight up.
Have we come to any conclusions?
Straight up.
I'm sorry, how did you mark it?
Hold on, let's see. Are we? Is he done or what are we doing?
All right. Defense Exhibit 39 is tendered and admitted without objection.
Well, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Okay.
text messages that weren't referenced today with, or confronted, with,
Okay.
as it relates to Mr. Bradley.
So these are additional text messages, Ms. Merchant?
Yeah, so what I did was they objected that they weren't complete because like the first part of the text wasn't there. It was just like, oh, there was something before that was said. So what I did was I spent this whole time trying to line them up so that I had the beginning of the text, the middle, based on their objection. They have all the text. They can admit all of them if they want them complete. And
All right.
Yeah,
I-
she a rookie, and she stayed
how
doing
about-
rookie
I'll
shit.
just do this. Just I understand the desire just to have the complete text chain, just for purposes of completing the record. I think that there's no point in having him sit here and authenticate every single one of them. So I'm willing to admit it as a court's exhibit. And only the exhibits, though, that had been previously tendered or referenced in testimony would be ones that actually
Yeah, this ain't
relied on for making any findings. But
yeah, they ain't really talking about nothing. Just how evidence is gonna be submitted. Here's the thing though, and I want to get y'all thoughts on this in the chat.
Merchant's phone when she allowed.
And let me know if y'all agree with me on this. So it's two cases, right? It's either he's lying or he was gossiping. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, I think I do think it's a little bit of both. I do think he did have more information than he gave up, but I also think like he was on some hater shit. Even how he was giving that information up, because he was like, "Oh yeah, well because it was certain things that even he learned from her, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this, that, and the third, right?" Which he did violate attorney-client privilege by sharing information that he got with this opposing counsel in the first place. Here's the thing though. What would make him have a change of heart? What would make him not get up here and confirm, like, yes, I said this. Yes, I knew this was a conversation that we had previously. We talked about it. We talked about it multiple times, right? What would make him go? Excuse me, y'all. What would make him go from being like? What would make him go from like literally confirming this shit with Ashley Merchant to turning around and being like, I don't recall none of that. I want to know what y'all think, but this is from my perspective. I think that his and Donnie C kind of pointed this out earlier. He said he's gonna be reduced to ambulance chasing. I think this has to do with his entire reputation as an attorney in Atlanta. Because when you got like these attorney relationships in cities like Atlanta, especially amongst black people, it's tight knit, right? Like it's it's colleagues, you got opponents and all of that shit. But niggas recognizing like one. He was gossiping with a white woman. And him gossiping with a white woman undermined this black female district attorney who was in a position to hold Donald Trump accountable for trying to steal the election in Georgia. I think he's recognizing that I don't want to be that nigga. I don't want to be the nigga that's the reason why Donald Trump got off in Georgia. Which is crazy because if you was literally reading the filing and because I disagree. I definitely think he lying when he like, oh, I ain't read the whole thing. Come on, bro. You knew what the filing said. You knew it was at the top of it. So I think he had a point where he's now questioning his you know what I'm saying, relationship with the rest of black attorneys in Atlanta, really nationwide. Because if Donald Trump end up because this is worst case scenario for Fani Willis, and it's best case scenario for Donald Trump. Fani Willis and her whole prosecution team is removed from the case. When the prosecutor is removed, there's what's called like a prosecutor's commission, and they come through. Hold on, because I think they may be talking about the text messages. Okay, all right. Nah, they still talking about the text messages. You don't want to be the nigga known to be like, I undermined the black woman that was about to hold Trump accountable. You don't want to be that nigga, and he's on the way to being that nigga. If Fani Willis is removed, the prosecutor's commission or something like that, they gonna pick a new prosecutor. That prosecutor could be pro-Trump. That prosecutor could straight up say, all right, I'm looking at the evidence and I don't believe it, and we could throw the whole case out. So there's an opportunity that the case could get thrown out, not because Donald Trump and them is asking, but because any new prosecutor that gets installed, even though that commission is like half Democrat, half Republican, it could still lead to another prosecutor feeling like this whole thing should be thrown out. That's best case scenario for Donald Trump. And literally at the center of it is Terrence Bradley. At the center of it. Now, he didn't say anything that was explosive. He didn't say anything to be like, got him. It's over. He gave up, which that was the expectation. The expectation was that he was using that privilege to be like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want this to, I don't want to snitch. But even with what they could ask him and what he was able to answer, it was just, I don't recall. Which they set themselves up for that position because when you relying on gossip, when he's the basis of the reason why you even running this motion in the first place, if he says he don't recall, then you put yourself in a fucked up position. Peaches said, I believe it. He violated privilege with the enemy. Blue said, oh, he is over at the, what did it say? At the max, he could be a public pretender if he lucky. Yeah, it's a bad look for the boy. It's a bad look for the boy. And I think it's a lesson for all of us. Like, this shit is not a game. This shit is not a game. Like, black people, out of all the people who was supposed to be responsible for holding Donald Trump accountable, have not been able to do it. The type of shit this nigga was able to get away with when it was other white people that could that could say whether or not he was supposed to do it, they wasn't able to do nothing. Now everybody holding Donald Trump accountable right now criminally, out of his fraud case that just passed, out of the two criminal cases in Georgia, and then the criminal case in Manhattan. That's 3 black people holding Donald Trump accountable for doing bullshit. 3. And when we see that we have an opportunity where one of those opportunities to hold him accountable is being undermined by a nigga, come on, man. To be honest, a lot of she's manipulating relationships that she had with these 2 male attorneys to undermine this black woman. That's upsetting to me. And then the amount of people that's willing to throw her under the bus because of this hearsay from these white attorneys that's trying to protect Trump, that's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. Black people, we legendary. We got the opportunity to make history in places where you know people struggle with that. You know what I mean? But anyway, I got some more content I'm working on. I'm putting that on TikTok. If y'all don't follow me on TikTok, do that now at The Political Plug. If y'all don't follow me on Instagram, do that now at The Political Plug, at The Chop Up Show on Instagram, where I've been putting out all the updates on this case. If y'all want to hear the quick update, not necessarily the hearing, follow me on TikTok, follow me on Instagram. I've been keeping up with a lot of this shit, specifically what's been going on with, I know a lot of y'all heard about the phone data that was put out recently, and I think there's gonna be a March 1st hearing on the phone data that was put out. The reason why the phone data ain't really what they try to make it seem like it is primarily because it doesn't prove anything. It proves that as much as they talk about they was texting and all of this, all of these things have been answered in prior testimony. But it's just like people love a salacious story, so it's like, oh, they was texting at the late hour. Oh, they showed data that showed that it don't even work like that. Like what's being extrapolated from the phone data is the salacious shit that people want extrapolated from the phone data, because there are a lot of alternative reasons, again, that have already been identified in testimony as to why the phone data isn't really as accurate as they try to make it seem. Like, for example, one of the biggest arguments that's being made is the amount of phone calls and the amount of text messages that happened between Nathan Wade and Fani Willis during, I think, 2021 to 2022. But the reason why, from 2020 to 2021. But the reason why that's ridiculous is because literally everybody phone usage was up, everybody text message usage was up, because it was in the middle of the pandemic. Everybody texting and calling more than anything else because we in the middle of a pandemic. And then also the man had cancer. as well as the mentorship relationship that they had prior, because she had just got elected to district attorney. So all of these alternative reasons as to why they were sending these text messages, when y'all hear people and when y'all see headlines just bumping their gums about, oh, well, look at the phone data, it tells you nothing but they communicated. It tells you, and I have never seen a prosecutor, let alone a black prosecutor, but any prosecutor, get treated like Fani Willis in the context of her guilt being assumed. Anytime there's a headline about an update, it's as if Fani Willis is the one that is being assumed to be guilty. Every headline that comes out leans against her. I've never seen a prosecutor get treated like that. I've never prosecute, especially you talking to niggas who come from criminality, niggas who come from, you know what I'm saying? Like I got my little cousin locked up right now. I got a couple little cousins locked up actually. Like we come from this shit. We know prosecutors have always been treated like the cream of the crop, the upper echelon, the untouchable, by both the system, you know what I'm saying, the judges, everybody. But here we are, a black district attorney, when it's only like 3 of them in the country, 3 or 4 of them in the country. District attorneys are 95% white in the United States. So when you only got a handful, if that, of DAs in the country, this is the worst we've ever seen a district attorney get treated. This is the first time we've ever seen a district attorney, her guilt be assumed over that of the people that she prosecuting. This is brand new, people. We are now beyond the pale. And actually, let me take a step back. It's not brand new. It's not beyond the pale. It's how the system works. Even when black people represent the law, somehow the law can be flipped. The justice system can be flipped and used against the person that's supposed to be maintaining justice. That's why y'all don't hear Donald Trump talking about being a law and order president no more at all. Y'all don't hear them talking about we gonna beat this country back together. Crime is bad. We gonna stop crime. Y'all don't hear that conversation no more because they recognize that they the biggest criminals, but it don't make a difference. It don't make a difference. This is why this is the last thing I'm gonna say, and we out of here. When y'all hear people talk about the liberal media, even the liberal media is anti-black as shit. When them phone records came out. Even when his testimony, when they reported on Terrence Bradley's testimony being today, oh, it could be a bombshell. He could expose Fani Willis. It's like the assumption of guilt is assumed. The assumption of guilt is assumed when it comes to the district attorney in a way that we have never seen it before. All right. That we had never seen it before. So, I appreciate y'all joining me. Appreciate y'all listening to me rant and shit. We definitely gonna be back March 1st. We definitely gonna be back. We gonna be back March 1st. Because I think they're gonna talk more about that, the phone data in the March 1st hearing, or it may just bring all this shit to an end. We don't know. But with that being said, I want to thank all y'all for joining me. Investing Out the Blue, C-Dot, Blessing Hot Topics, Tiffany 2. Donnie C, Green pulled up, Shabo pulled up, Miss Ma'am, Chastorian. Appreciate the love, man. We will be back Thursday with our Black History Month show, the end of Black History Month. Well, I'll let y'all know what the topic's gonna be then. But in the meantime, in between time, I will fuck with y'all. Peace. We out. I'm out.